Instructions for accessing subtitles in a language other than English are included on our board meetings webpage as well as in the description below. Instrucciones para acceder a los subtítulos en un idioma que no sea el inglés se incluyen en nuestra página web de reuniones de la Junta, así como en la descripción a continuación.
Good evening and welcome to the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting. Today is December 17th, 2025, and I am calling our meeting to order at 5:03 p.m. We have 4 trustees present in person at the Ross Valley School District office at 100 Shaw Drive in San Anselmo. Myself, Rachel Litwack, Chris Landles-Cobb, Daniel Cassidy, and Shelley Hamilton. Trustee Anna Marsh will be joining us later. We also have cabinet members present, Superintendent Tyler Graff, and our CBO, Chris Carson. Our meeting is being live streamed via YouTube, and the link is on our website and on the agenda. There will be a 60-second delay between the meeting and the YouTube live stream. The recording of the meeting will be made available to the public on our district YouTube website. Just for reference throughout the meeting, public comment regarding items on closed session agenda. Public comments on closed session agenda items will be heard prior to the board meeting recessing into closed session. Once the public comment period has ended for the closed session agenda item, no more comments will be taken and we'll proceed to the agenda. And with that, I will get on to our meeting. So our first agenda item is closed session. We have public comment regarding item on closed session agenda. We have no public here to comment. So I will move this on. I'm going to identify the closed session topics. The first one is Public Employee Performance Evaluation, title Superintendent pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. We have Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation, Consideration of Settlement Agreement, Government Code 54956.9. And we have Conference with Legal Counsel, Anticipated Litigation, Significant Exposure to Litigation, pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, Subdivision D2 or 3. Special Education Program Dispute, 3 cases. Student SSIDs 374-083-2178, SSID 64596662261, and SSID 5217377477. And with all of that and no public to comment, I will recess us to closed session at 5:05. All right, welcome back. We are reconvening at 6:04 from closed session. I'm going to report out from closed session. Item 4 is there's no report. Item 5, there is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, consideration of settlement agreement. The board voted 4-0 to approve the staff's recommendation. For item number 6, the conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, subdivision D2 or 3, special education program dispute, 3 cases. In all 3 cases listed there, student SSID 374-083-2178, 645-966-2261, and 521-737-7477. We voted 4-0 to approve staff recommendations. And moving on with our agenda, we have procedural items. The first one is the Pledge of Allegiance and the Democratic Reflections. If you'd like to join me, please do.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is to adopt our agenda and time allocations. You know, it looks kind of like it's going to be a longer meeting. Do we have any questions on the agenda? Any changes that we wanted to make? Anybody?
Nope, not here.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to. We don't need to do public comment
on the
adopting agendas procedural.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have somebody who'd like to make a motion on our agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Shelley?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye. Okay, we have our agenda for the evening. The next item is communication. First one here is public comment regarding items not on the open session agenda. Do we have any public who would like to comment on something that is not on our agenda? Great. So please take a seat. You have 3 minutes. In 2.5 minutes, you'll hear a ding just to give you a warning that there's 30 seconds
Not
left.
anymore. It will count down.
Oh,
on
it'll
the
count
screen.
down. Thank you.
Sorry, why is it not 3 minutes?
No, it's 3 minutes. You get a warning at 2.5, so you know that you
Got
have
it.
30 seconds left. No, you get the full 3 minutes.
And my husband's gonna yield
Yeah, I'm
his
gonna yield my time to her.
time to me.
Yeah, she can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. No, no,
Yeah, okay, thank you. Are we starting?
Yeah.
Okay, is this on? Is this on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello?
for the
It
recording.
doesn't, it's just for the recording.
Sorry, okay, got it. Okay, Tyler, congratulations on your,
Thank you.
Okay, so good evening. Last month, our family made the difficult decision to withdraw our daughter from this school district. This was not a choice we took lightly. Our daughter felt deeply connected to her friends, teachers, and school community. However, over time, it became clear that the values and priorities of the district no longer aligned with those of our family, particularly around age-appropriate instruction, transparency, and educational priorities. The district's focus away from academic rigor to social justice initiatives, as best illustrated by Wade Thomas's principle, quote unquote, cultivating activists, remarks, is disheartening. We were shocked when our daughter, a second grader at Hidden Valley, came home and told us her pronouns following a class discussion on gender identity. To give the school benefit of the doubt, we assumed it was just to be inclusive. Then in 3rd grade, the school librarian read to the class the book My Rainbow, a story about transgender girl choosing wigs. Our daughter came to us confused and asked for guidance. We shared with the principal our concerns about the content not being age appropriate and hoped it would not happen again. In 4th grade, without advance notice to parents, the class discussed pronouns. The principal did not recall our conversation from the year prior and also had no plan to inform parents about non-curricular sensitive or identity-based lessons in the future. My son, a Wade Thomas alum, shared with us that he often felt uncomfortable with the school's constant presentations of racial and identity themes. He described feeling guilty about being white and heterosexual, feeling less adequate and worthy than others. We want our children to learn about the world, be respectful and mindful of our diverse community. But as parents, in our children's education, we demand transparency, age appropriateness, and parental engagement, all of which are clearly protected by the California Ed Code, but painfully lacking in RSVD. Particularly, the district-wide focus on pushing identity-based narratives and biases towards certain races and selective religions is divisive and unnecessary. This year, at Back to School Night, Principal Harris emphasized social justice activism woven both into curricula via grades 3rd through 5th activist classes and including references to the new ELA materials. Despite all the talk about inclusivity and being seen, my daughter found zero representation of herself or her minority group despite prior conversations with this district. The district is asking the community to approve a new parcel tax to increase teacher pay, a measure I wholeheartedly support. Yet, transparency, trust, and partnership are required to win our votes. We want our wonderful teachers to be well compensated to focus on student success and core academics. The funds allocated to consultants on social programs must be allocated and prioritized with transparency and alignment with parents' wishes. It is difficult for parents and voters to reconcile this request when resources appear to be directed toward consultants and programs unrelated to core academics or student achievement. Families want to see a district that is wholly focused on educational excellence, reading, writing, mathematicians, science, critical thinking, before being asked to support increased funding. This is of utmost importance given our history of declining test scores. Additionally, several elements of the district's programming and classroom materials gave a sense of school was promoting a specific worldview rather than teaching students how to think, including posters elevating political and activist figures, and activist programs incorporating political undertones. Workshops brought into the district that seemed designed to shape beliefs rather than building skills. The newly adopted school ELA curricula, which intertwines nouns and verbs with social justice. What's more, a curricula theme includes human rights, yet features a country which denies such rights and is downright hostile to women, the LGBTQ community, and the US and Western democracies. As a refugee from a communist country, this is alarming and clearly anti-American. Perhaps the most troubling part of this experience has been hearing from other families who share our concerns but feel afraid to speak up, worried that they will be labeled, dismissed, or attacked socially. Many would consider leaving the district for the above reasons if financial circumstances allowed it. In closing, our decision to leave RSVD is heartbreaking. We loved many of the teachers and we believe the vast majority truly care about children, but we could not continue in this district that promotes age-inappropriate, non-curricula being taught without transparency, identity-based material that overshadows academics, and where ideological interpretation is prioritized over critical thinking and educational fundamentals. Schools should help students develop critical thinking, not shape their political, racial, or social identities for them. We believe this emphasis ultimately limits students' ability to reason independently and understand diverse viewpoints. Turning out social justice activists who cannot read, add, or write is not progressive. We hope the district will reflect on these concerns and recenter its mission on academic excellence, transparency, partnership with families, and the well-being of all students. Thank you so much for your time, and happy holidays.
Thank you. So any other additional public comment on items that are not on our agenda? Alright. So the next item is correspondence and communication to the board. I'm assuming all my fellow trustees have had a moment to read all those. So moving on, sorry, it's a new agenda format, it's a little bit different looking here. So our next item is announcements by labor unions. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Do we have anyone from RVTA or CSEA here? No? Okay. So they are not here today. So I will move on to E, presentation and or action items. The first one is presentation and discussion on the parcel tax feasibility survey results by Godby Research.
Great, so we're gonna have Brian Godby from Godby Research call in. And he's gonna basically give us an overview of the polling that he did. So there's no action here, it's just a review of the polling. And there is the polling was done around a specific structure of a parcel tax, but that does not mean this is the parcel tax structure that we end up going with. That'll be voted on by the board on February 11th, I believe. Do I just yeah.
Hi, Brian Godby.
Hi Brian, this is Tyler Graff, Superintendent at Ross Valley. You are live with the Board of Education.
Yeah, great.
All right, I just gave the intro and we will hand it over to you. We have the slide deck on slide 1.
All right, great. So slide 1, not the cover slide?
The cover slide, we have it at the cover slide.
Okay, so let's go ahead to the next slide. The overall overview research objectives. As you know, we conducted a survey. The purpose was to look at potential voter support for renewing the current parcel tax. We wanted to look at not only the renewal, but also different rates and annual adjustments. And then, of course, there's a wide variety of demographics that we also look at. And we use that to both stratify the sample initially and to weight it on the back end to make sure it is representative of the Ross Valley community. Next slide, please. Could be a methodology overview. So as this summarizes briefly, we landline, cell phone, text online, and email online surveys. The majority of the respondents come from online surveys. That's the world we live in. We looked at likely November 2026 voters. We had a subset of June 26, and we're in the field in mid-November after the election. The average survey was 15 minutes on the phone. We completed 418 interviews, and that all gives us a margin of error for the November universe of 4.72 plus or minus 5.71. Next slide, actually, in the next slide, which is titled Favorability Rating.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. So this slide shows you the responses to our question that we asked both in the current survey, but is also in the survey that we conducted for the district last summer in 2024. The first bar is the November 2024 likely universe from last year. And if you add the very favorable and somewhat favorable together, you see that 66% in round numbers had a favorable opinion of the job the district is doing to provide a quality education. In the current survey, it's slightly higher. Statistically, it's probably not a significant difference, but it is certainly higher. And you can see that if, again, adding the very and somewhat together, we're at 73%. So certainly an encouraging increase. Next slide, please.
Okay.
This is the favorability of the district's management of public funds. Similar question. This always has lower totals, and that's because the don't know category goes up substantially, and this is obviously about finances. So again, adding the very and somewhat together, in the 2024 survey, we were at 43%. In this survey, we're at 56% in round numbers of people that have a favorable view of the district's management of public funds. There's still, a big chunk, almost 25%, in the current universe, about the same in the 24 survey, that don't know, which means that there is work to be done to explain what you've been up to. Next slide.
Okay.
Okay, so now you're looking at the initial support for the proposed measure, and the slide breaks it down by the November 2026 universe as well as the June 26 universe. And of course, June is a subset of November. So this measure was designed to renew the $749 parcel tax and add $540. The state law requires us to say how much that raises annually, which is about $8.6 million. And you can see in the June universe for next year, we're at 65% when we add the definitely yes and probably yes together. In November, we're at 65.6, so slightly higher, really, almost identical between the two election universes. Difference probably is, just there's a political and economic risk the longer you go. Surveys are a snapshot in time, so the further out you could try to predict, the harder it is. So they're really the same now, which sort of suggests at this initial stage that going for June is the way they'll look at this. And next slide, please.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a quick summary of the top features, the things we might spend the money on. And as you can see here, the top item, without getting into the methodology of the ranking, which is sort of complicated, but attract and retain highly qualified teachers is 77%, at least somewhat more likely to support the measure. Maintaining core academic programs in science and technology is virtually at the same level statistically as is maintaining core academic programs in reading and writing. So science, technology, reading, writing, and retaining highly qualified teachers. Next slide, please.
Okay.
The next slide is similar, looks similar anyway. It's slightly different. The first set of items were things you would put in a ballot question. So they're kind of the nuts and bolts of how you're going to spend the money. These are kind of the why you would do that. And so at the top of this list, again, having a great teacher in the classroom is the most important element. Providing quality education, the measure will help the school district, which currently has among the lowest salaries in the county, to retain the best teachers. That's 77%, at least somewhat more likely to support the measure, so well above threshold. The next item is Ross Valley School District is losing some of the best teachers and employees to nearby districts, and this would help us be competitive. And then finally, the measure will maintain teachers' jobs and minimize layoffs in the community at 69%. Again, with the margin of error, they're technically tied, and that's why we put them in the tier 1 that you see here. But there's numeric differences, so the top argument is the one that's probably the most important. Slide. So in addition to talking about what we would spend the money on and the positives, we also talked about some of the negatives, because that's the world we live in also. The measure is a 70% increase, which is doing the math from that increase I talked about. The measure would cost every homeowner, and again, doing the math, $1,289 a year. And then third, that tariffs and inflation and high prices are a reason not to do this at this particular time. Next slide. So after we had talked about the positives and the negatives and as well as what we would spend the money on more specifically, we come back to our ballot questions a second time. And what we've done is we've simulated what happened in a real world campaign. Obviously, we have positives on our side, but the negatives do have an impact, and they sort of keep us from going up. So you see in the June initial test, we were at 65, and now we're at 65 too. It's hard to say there's a difference because at 0.3, there also, it's hard to say there's a difference, but it is notable that in the final test, the number of definitely yeses did go up. So there are some people that moved from probably to definitely, and that's always encouraged.
You there, Brian?
Hello?
Brian, did we lose you?
I'm still here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So this next slide is the same question, same second test, but this is looking at the November voters. The initial test was at 65.6. We're now at 66.6. So it's a 1 point increase. And there is a decrease, though, in the definitely yeses. This is a slightly, bigger universe. It's kind of less frequent voters than the June. So there's appears to be a little bit of difference between June and November. But again, while June is a little bit less, we're still within the margin of error for the 2/3 on both of these. And November is just further away. So the further out we go, the more likely there is to be some change in the environment or in politics that might impact that. Next slide, please.
Okay.
So the next slide was a follow-up to that, and it's support for renewing the measure with just a 3% annual adjustment. The original measure had it at 4%. And for June, we're at 65% now, which takes us from that 64.7, again, a very little increase, but certainly increase. There's some impact. In November, it's even greater. We've gone from 66.6 to 67. Again, these are all at the margin, but there is some impact of reducing the annual adjustment. And next slide.
Okay.
So in addition to looking at the rate for the annual adjustments of the measure, we also looked at different tax rates. So instead of increasing it by 540, we said, what if it was 490? And here you see that for June, we're at 63. So that's actually a decrease, as is November at 65.6. So what that's saying is that we're really not getting any benefit by reducing the rate from 540 to 490. There is a little more intensity. We're up to 46 and 45% in a definitely category, but the total is not going up. And next slide, please. And so we did that in one more increment. This was instead of 490. What if it was 440? And again, same thing. We're not getting a bump up, so it's not suggesting that there's a big difference between 540, 490, or 440 in terms of the level of support. And that is the last slide that I've got for you this evening. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that the board members might have.
Quick clarification. If I get what you're saying, when you tested the 540, the 490, and you're actually seeing decreased support when you lower the increased amount. I mean, it's
very slightly, yes, that's correct.
And do you think that's because people understand the need that the district, were there any questions that gave you any insight into that?
I think that when we look back at the high level of the features, the things we spend the money on, and the positives, in both cases we're in the low 70s or a little higher than that. There is certainly support for the district's needs, and reducing the amount doesn't really help the average voter that much, and in comparison to what they've already told us with respect to teachers in science classes and reading and writing, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, can you talk at all about the first two slides where there's some public perception about the district and public perception on the district's management of funds, why you think that went up so much since a year and a half or 2 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, statistically speaking, with the plus or minus margin of error, there isn't really a huge difference, but it is certainly noteworthy that both the quality of education perception went up, as well as the handling of taxpayer funds. I think primarily we're probably looking at the difference in the voting universe. November 24 is the largest voting group that we'll have, so you've got a lot of one-time voters. November 26 is a higher propensity, but smaller group of people who are more engaged. They vote more often, they're more plugged into what's going on locally, and so they may have more of an opinion about what the district is up to. And that's also supported by the don't knows. In November 24 for quality of education, the don't know was 15.6. It's down to 13.4. So people are saying, they're more knowledgeable in that smaller universe of the November 26th universe, and they also seem to have more information at their disposal.
Other questions from the board?
So the different increases to the base parcel tax of $749 that we would have for next year, do you have a recommendation on what number, having looked at our data?
I think that you can certainly go, be talking about the highest number at this stage. I think that the next part of the process needs to be for the district to reach out to other stakeholders, right? This is the average voter who doesn't necessarily show up at board meetings, but that's not the only group, to represent in the community. So I think outreach to other stakeholders is important, and then obviously it's a decision the board needs to make vis-a-vis the need, and that's the ultimate key here is you have to say what is our need, and can we justify 540 or something else. But I think you start at the 540 and go through that process in the next few months before you have to put a measure on the ballot, which is the statutory deadline is the first week in March. So you've got a little bit of time for that outreach.
And that amount, Brian, this is Daniel, brings us, approximately $1,200, $1,300 a year on our taxes. And
That's right.
What we're doing with our sanitary district for our sewer service charge is around the same exact amount every year that every Ross Valley resident is paying for sewer. So that's a similar amount that people are already paying for sewers across Ross Valley. So that seems fair as a number to baseline for our teachers.
It sort of seems like education's a great deal, right? So yeah, I think that's right.
This is Chris. Any surprises in these numbers that you saw, or are they pretty much a favorable outcome?
I don't think there are any surprises. I mean, what we're seeing across the board, despite economic challenges that we're facing,
Right.
Those are all baked into these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that somebody could say, oh, well, the economy is going south, so these numbers are not valid. I mean, the economy is where it is now, and it's probably going to be in similar form in June when the measure's on the ballot, so I'm not worried about that particularly. Science and technology and reading, writing for elementary districts are almost always at the top of the list. as are, keeping highly qualified teachers. So that wasn't surprising at all. I think it's in context of what we're seeing elsewhere in the state.
Thanks.
Well, and I love seeing those first two slides around just the favorable rating that we're managing the public funds.
Do we have questions?
Oh, question, sorry.
Sorry, I'll get back to your comments. Do we have any more questions for Brian?
This is Shelley. When we did this survey, there was a slide that compared the last time we did the study and then this time we did the study. And just help me remember, time frame wise, last time you did the study was before economic turmoil. So that study, correct, I think I'm remembering correctly that you did the study and we went out for the parcel tax kind of right when there was a whole lot of tariffs and turmoil like coincided with the parcel tax, which meant that our study had been done before that.
That's right.
And so so what I'm seeing here is that if you take into account people's individual perception of the economy, the first time we did it and we got the numbers, there wasn't as much economic turmoil. Now we're doing it a second time. Everybody is baking in all of the economic stuff going on and we're still getting better, at least the same, if not better numbers. Is that timing correct?
The timing is certainly correct.
Okay.
And when we did the survey in 2024, it was the summer because we had a July deadline to put a measure on the ballot in November. That didn't happen. Put it on the ballot in the spring. But the survey, what we saw happen virtually everywhere, the economy was at its best pre-pandemic. April of 2020, it fell off a cliff, and so every survey we did registered the economy in bad shape. That worked its way back up throughout the pandemic, and by the time we got to the summer of 2024, it was the best it had been in 5 years, or 4 years, 4.5. Then again in January of this year, we fell off the cliff again. Mm-hmm. That cliff got even steeper, and you can sort of track it if you look at the S&P as the indicator of the economy. I know that's not the only one, but obviously in March when the tariffs were announced was the low point for the year on the economy. Unfortunately, people's attitudes, while the S&P may have gone up since then, people's attitudes about the economy have not, and now we're obviously facing the holidays and gift buying season, so people are again more concerned, or their impression of the economy hasn't improved at least.
But these numbers didn't tank with people's trepidation about the economy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's still work to do here. I mean, we need to underscore that because we're not, at 75%, we're at 65%, which, is a 2-point loss, but we're certainly within striking distance, and people seem to have baked in the economy that is just, this is the new normal.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any more questions? Okay, do you have any public comment on this item? We get 3 minutes, and then we get one more, or is it?
I'm gonna see, it wasn't working, so let me see, it's gonna work again. Yeah, it's working again.
There you go.
Okay, hi, PJ Pfeffer, Manor Parent. Thanks for the survey. I think the comparison against the results from the 624 survey against 1124 is the most promising thing. You're asking for more and you're still getting like a 20% increase in your approval rate from like 50% to 60 something. And nothing in those results indicates that you're being too aggressive. The set downs aren't a meaningful difference. And I worry that the district is not being ambitious enough in asking for what will make a meaningful district to the budget. One of the things we talked about in some of the parcel tax town halls that I did not see polled, and obviously I understand there's a limit to how many questions you can ask, was the difference in the sunset. So all of the polled provisions were for 8 years. and we talked about who's really make or break, yes or no, on 8 versus 10 years, especially considering almost all the other districts nearby are 9 or 10 year sunsets. And to that point, I'd be curious as to the consultant's opinion and thinking about how serious it hurts the ability to do a subsequent parcel tax increase, should it be needed, if you're going so soon after an existing one. What is the hangover period during which it's nearly impossible to get one approved? Because, I appreciate we definitely need a parcel tax that can pass. Looking at the amounts being raised here and the compensation offered by our neighboring districts, assuming further increases for them, this is still gonna, in 2 years, we'll probably be at the bottom 3 of the districts in compensation again. And, we won't be running a structural deficit, but we'll still be in the same position that we've been in and want to get out of. So I just, like to ask the board to consider even increasing the period for the sunset, or, leaning heavy on how high you think you can put the ask for. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any further public comments?
Hi, I'm Twig. I'm also a man parent. I guess I was a little disappointed with the survey in the sense that if we're talking about the 1,250 tax, it's 1,210 versus 1,250. Did you really expect to make a lot of difference in that, and versus another $50? I feel like from all the discussions we had at all the parcel tax town halls and meetings, it seemed like we should have really had us set the number that what we truly need and pull a significant variation from that. I have a hard time understanding what kind of difference would there really be there, 1,250 versus 1,210. For like, I don't even know, why would you expect a meaningful difference, I guess. And I think, the error of the survey is 5%, so talking the difference between 64 and 64.5 and 65, it's all the same. Mathematically, all of these numbers are exactly the same, and that they're basically the same as we got from the actual election in May. So I'm not really sure we learned a whole lot, and we spent $30,000 on it. Bottom line here, we'll just have to make sure we get to more voters that don't know what's going on and make sure they vote. But really, I don't see what we really learned here that we didn't know already from our efforts in May. It's really, I encourage everyone just to think of what are the numbers of what we really truly need for the district to function, if we justify that need, and then that's, I think, how we should be thinking about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any additional public comment?
This one over here.
Either one.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mimi Willard from the Coalition of Sensible Taxpayers. I think that the poll design, it masks the conclusion that you should draw, which is that you really have no choice but to seek a lower parcel tax increase. On the face of it, all the scenarios come out slightly below the 2/3 approval, but with a wide range of margin of error. But it's really illogical that the voters don't care whether you ask for less. It just doesn't make any sense. I have seen this many times before, in fact, most of the time, that when you have a long poll that asks a lot of questions, by the time you get to the bottom and you say, well, could we make a little less? Could we do it this way? Could we do it that way? The numbers don't change. And I think that that's what you're seeing is people get fatigued by the time they get to the end of the poll, and it's just kind of like, I already told you what I think, don't ask me anymore. And the other thing is that when I look at polls, I often see that the poll questions missed the most potent negative, and hence the informed vote isn't informed, it's overly optimistic. In this case, what's missing is the tax tsunami of 2026. On the June ballot, you will have a large Marin health bond. You'll have SMART, and you might possibly
have a preschool tax on it. On the November ballot, there'll be TAM Union and who knows what else. I think that you also need to note that everyone who's answering this poll faces a big increase with the simple parcel tax. Whereas when you had the square foot, there were some winners and some losers. So for many, the retry is actually more daunting to them than the first try. So, I know that you're very keen to get your parcel tax renewed, and you can't afford to lose again. So I think really your best chance of passage is you need to ask for meaningfully less. And the fact that your employees want more doesn't mean that voters will approve that. And, you can't afford another failure. Thank you for listening.
Any other public comment? Bring it back to the board for discussion. And we have Anna Marsh, trustee, who's joined us.
Sorry I'm late.
Any comments up here at the guys?
The only comment that I have that my takeaway is back to the question that I had about the timing. Well, the numbers look like there's not much change, and maybe we haven't, like, what have you learned? Because it's all the same. It's all kind of in that zone of 65, but not your 66.6%. But for me, again, I think what's behind it is the fact that the first time we did it, the baking in of people's perceptions of the economy, that I think the first go around didn't anticipate this big cliff and crisis with tariffs and S&P stuff going on. The result that we got had that baked in, because I think that influenced people. And then this one also has it, but it's back up again, or doesn't look like it's back up, but it does bake in people's sense of the economy. So I take heart to that, but it's already got that in. That's a kind of a new insight for me that I feel heartened by.
I think another thing to point out is that we have a sunset in all of these questions, and we didn't have a sunset the first time we did it in April 2024. And I think a lot of people had a strong reaction to that, which we changed that when we put out Measure E. But I think that probably dragged a lot of people into the no region. And I don't know how much that plays into this here, but I know that was, for me, when I got feedback, that was the reaction, that they were like, it doesn't have an end date.
Because they felt like it was just going to go on and on. And
Yeah, it was like,
And these numbers are not just pulled out of the sky. These are actually calculations to determine what we can work at for the period of time. So it is truly baking in what is the ultimate lowest amount we can go to be able to not function in a deficit in 3 or 4 years, correct? And then how high can we go in respect to the community that we rely on to pay not just these parcel taxes, but bonds? Our schools are falling apart, okay? The elephant in the room is that everyone's gonna come to help keep the infrastructure going, and those are bonds, am I correct, Chris?
Yes.
So, we're not having phantom numbers here. We have thought about these numbers because we don't want to be here in 5 years to say, surprise, we're functioning at a deficit again. We have to go out and ask for another parcel tax. So we are actually negligent in asking for less. Am I correct? I'm just spitballing.
I think Brian makes a good recommendation to get more specific community feedback on the size of the increase. Right? I think that's something we can do through another town hall or more conversations. Obviously, people know they can reach out directly to me or to all of you about this topic. I'll share this in one of the other presentations tonight. The difference between our revenue, which is the source of the problem, is the LCFF calculator. Puts us in the bottom 4% of the state of California. The state of California is number 32 out of 50 in the country. So underfunded state, and we were at the bottom of the underfunded state. If we just had the average per pupil funding, it'd be a gap of $4.6 million to what we have right now.
For the state, the average of the state
Just for
level.
the average of the state.
Right.
80% of the average of the state is $3.6 million, which is still 600,000 less than what we asked for in Measure E. So the size of our problem, if we wanted to pay teachers in the bottom quartile of the county, again, we're not trying to compete with the top of the bottom quartile, and maintain our student programs because we're seeing academic improvements over the last 4 years, would be right in that $3.6 to $4.6 million. Our highest ask here is right at the bottom of that range.
Exactly.
So, you know, and I think what we heard from the public here is, you hear some public say, you should ask for more because you actually need more, and that's accurate. And you're hearing other people in the public say, you should ask for less because you took a loss and you should listen to the community. And I think the reality is, there's
We're
somewhere in
listening
between
to
there.
both
We need to
sides.
talk to the community more
Right.
about what the real thing is, because a passage is what's needed most. And where that number falls, we're open to feedback from the community.
But the numbers, according to the research, it's 65% are in favor of renewing at $749, and 65% are in favor of renewing at $749 plus $540.
And a 4% inflation rate.
Yeah. So,
To me, I hear that as ask for what you need because we don't want you to come back again and again.
can't be here in 4 years.
You can't be here in 4 years and again to this, all the, you know, you got the little dials, and the shorter you have to come back, you just, people don't feel like ask for what you need. We don't want to be having, get back to educating and we don't have to do this again. If you need it, you need
Right.
it. I mean, that's that one message that I think we have definitely heard.
The
people
biggest
say.
source of feedback that I got from Measure E was, don't do it on a special election. We heard that loud and clear. We're going out on a statewide election. We'll continue to do that. And I actually think it's more favorable for us in a statewide election than it is in a special election anyway. So, lesson learned. The other one was, people in this community have been supporting a flat tax for 30 years. They didn't want a change in methodology. They wanted to stick to the same methodology because there were winners and there were losers, and people in the community didn't like that. People wanted a flat tax. So I think that's why we polled on this flat tax and then played with inflation rate and the amount of the increase.
But I think through the work that everybody's done in the community with Measure E, right, people are much more in favor of how we're managing the public funds. That's a big difference than where we were in November of 2024. Right, so again, the message is out there. People are hearing this. People are hearing it from all sides, and that's a big piece. I don't know if 56% is a good number, but it's better than what we were at 42%. Right, so that's to me, we're telling the right story. People realize how critical this is, and the next agenda items we'll be talking about cutting.
That's right.
Right, and so this isn't this. We're going to build. We're going to give our teachers that. This is just, again, to be realistic to where we are in a district, which is a fair amount.
And I think something else I heard from public is that, I would love to pay our teachers the same we pay the TAM district. I'd love that. There's no world in which that will ever happen in the Ross Valley School District. It just won't. But if we can compete with the bottom quartile, which is kind of where our revenue is, then I'm happy with that. And I think that's fair. If our revenue stream is in the bottom quartile and our pay is in the bottom quartile, that seems fair. Aspirationally, would I love to give more? Sure, but that's just not a reality. We're not getting $25,000 per student. We're getting $11,000 per student.
Yeah, I was skeptical that we even did this polling, but I think it told us a lot. I think that everyone fair is fair, and when people are telling us that we should ask for what we need, because I agree that we're not being greedy. We're just trying to bottom quartile. Like that is, I think everybody can agree that is not greedy.
And we have fantastic teachers that are putting outcomes out in the top quartile of the county.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this isn't like a situation where we're overpaying teachers and getting poor outcomes. We're underpaying our teachers and getting excellent outcomes. So in terms of like, if you think about it as a business, we are hyper efficient. We spend less per student than any other district in the county, and we get some of the highest outcomes in the county. We should be super proud of that. And if your business gets too efficient, the product starts failing.
Mm-hmm.
We're on that cusp right now.
So just to come back, this amount, let's just say the 540, that's where we have bookended to a level of comfort to say, we're not going out and asking for the moon here. We're asking what we need to ask, tolerating the dignity and threshold of taxpayers. This is going to get us where we need to be, where we don't have to turn around in a few years and say we're operating at a deficit. Am I correct?
Well, I think what this is giving us is like a baseline for us to start talking to the
Exactly.
community. Because I think we need to hear what the community
Exactly.
has to say about these numbers now that we've heard from the survey, but I think we need to actually like talk to stakeholders, as Brian was saying.
Exactly.
Like, I think this gives us like a target starting place.
That's it.
That's
That's what
Like
I'm
not, because
thinking.
we're not talking about terms of a parcel tax.
No,
I
we're not.
don't wanna.
But that's what I'm
yeah.
thinking. This is the threshold that we need clarity on to make sure this is why we're here. And I just wanna make sure that we're being very clear about why we're at this number, right? Okay.
And I think between now and January 27th, we can have engagement and listen to the community. January 27th board meeting, we'll start talking about the election timing, the size, the structure, all of the details. We'll get more feedback, and then on February 11th, we'll actually vote to put something on the ballot. So there's plenty of time for community feedback. Send the board an email, send me an email, come talk to me. We're open for specific and actionable feedback. We're happy to take it, and then we'll discuss it again on January 27th, where we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the actual ballot, and then on February 11th we'll make the vote.
Okay,
So open to feedback.
great, thank you.
No action needed to be taken tonight.
Alright, so are you okay moving on?
Thank you, Brian.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank
You
you
too.
too. Alright, so our next item is recommended approval of the tentative agreement between the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees and the Ross Valley Teachers Association to resolve negotiations for the 2025-26 school year and the AB 1200 disclosure.
And I'm going to start with this, but do you want to say something before we begin, Tyler?
Why don't you start and I'll end it.
Okay. First of all, this is the culmination of negotiations with the Ross Valley Teachers Association, and before I even get into this, we truly want to say thank you to the Ross Valley teachers for the hard work that they put in and what ultimately led to this agreement. And so as we get into it, in terms of the dollars, what they did agree to was 0% on schedule. And so kind of going back to what we've been talking about in terms of our budget, the teachers really recognize that and have accepted 0% on schedule. What we were able to give to the teachers was a $1,000 off schedule, which you see there. And that is being paid for using one-time funding sources. And so it works out to a one-time bonus, and it looks like a 1% salary increase. And then the other thing that we have done is picked up the health and benefit costs that provides for single coverage for Kaiser single plus your dental benefits as well. And so by doing that, the all-in cost for the district is $191,515 for this settlement. And there were some other things that were built into the agreements as well. And So we've provided a copy of the AB 1200, which is required, and those numbers have been built into our budget. And that document is signed by the superintendent and I, is then provided to the County Office of Education. We have to give them 10 days to at least look at it prior. So if they have any concerns, they can come back to us. And that was all done prior to this. And so that is attached in here as well. And by approving this item tonight, you will be accepting the agreements that, the tentative agreements that are attached.
So I just want to say that this is bittersweet for me. On one side of the coin, I'm proud of our relationship with our union partners and the understanding of teachers around our budget. They understand where we are and that we're deficit spending at an unsustainable pace and we can't afford compensation increases. So I'm really proud of that. I think the union did an amazing job at the table, collaborating with us and working on things that were not directly cost issues, but were more time and working condition issues, and the district was able to kind of give on some of those things. So proud of that collaboration and that communication. On the flip side, a 0% raise to our teachers is problematic. We're at the bottom of the county and we're losing ground. That's one of the talking points. We're at the bottom of the county and we're losing ground. The next lowest district is giving a 2 or 3% raise. So we're at the bottom of the county and we're losing ground to other districts. And I think this is concerning to me, although a lot of our teachers want to stay here because the culture and climate is great, our families are great, our board is phenomenal, their administrators are great, their colleagues are amazing. That's why people stay here. If we continue to lose ground, we're going to continue to lose excellent teachers to other districts. And I think this is why this settlement agreement is bittersweet to me. Really proud of that collaboration, but also disappointed the fact that we're at the bottom of the county and losing ground.
Do we have questions only? Either Chris or Tyler?
Quick question. When you presented these numbers are reflected in the budget?
Correct.
The first interim?
Correct.
Okay.
We did it in
Good
terms
question.
of order of operations. This is in front of that intentionally because once you approve it, then it gets automatically built into the budget.
And this 0% increase this year doesn't affect step and column increases that some people might qualify for.
Correct.
Traditionally, right throughout the year.
They still get the step and column increases, and that is a function that happens at the beginning of every school year. So it would happen again July 1.
Good.
It's just a one time.
I know that you had a productive conversation with RVSD, and my concern is attrition, and I want to sort of gauge what your thoughts are around, as we go into the summer, what does that potentially look like, given that our teachers aren't getting another increase?
Last year, we lost 4% of our teaching staff directly because of pay. We did exit interviews for a few of the folks that left, and 4% of them left because of pay. When I talk to teachers, a lot of teachers stick around because culture, climate, colleagues, the board, administrators, it's a really great place to work. And I think it's hard to leave when you know the culture and climate is so healthy. But when you look across the street or down the road, and it's not just individual health care, but it's full family health care. That's a $15,000 to $20,000 increase right there, in addition to a $15,000 to $20,000 compensation increase. So total package, you're looking at somewhere between $15,000 and $30,000 more at a district within a 10-minute commute. I think if we continue to be at the bottom and to lose ground, we're going to see more attrition, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's in that 4 to 6% year over year. I won't name names, but one of our best kindergarten teachers last year had an excruciating decision to make when she was offered a position down the road for $20,000 or $30,000 more, and she sat in my office with tears in her eyes, not wanting to leave this district, even though that was going to help fund college and pay bills and put food on the table. She wanted to stay here. But after it didn't pass, she knew she couldn't. And I think that's the story of this district, unfortunately, because we have the bottom 4% revenue in the state of California. It's hard to retain phenomenal people like that when they're faced with a compensation increase of that magnitude. You can't blame the person for going somewhere else. And that impacts kids. There's a different kindergarten teacher in that classroom. And I think, we just have to be careful about that.
Any more questions? No? Okay. Do we have public comment on this item?
You all know who I am. I was at home, I was listening in, I decided I had to show up here. Few things to cover. First off, the lady at the beginning, not Representative Wade Thomas, completely nuts. Julie Harris is a gem. I will die on that hill. She's wonderful, great principal. Second point, Anya Twig with her analysis of the statistical variation across those numbers. You didn't really learn anything. The deviation is too small. That is too small to make decisions off of. We love numbers. They tell us the truth. Be careful. That is my advice to you. It is 400 representative citizens out of 18,000 in the district. That is 2.2% of the population. It's not enough to make an educated decision on. However, Ms. Cobb, you landed it. Go for what you know will pass. That is the state we are in. We have to do what you need to survive for the next few years. If you have to come back, you have to come back for teacher pay. We love our teachers. They are great. I will also fight for any of the other teachers at Wade Thomas. Wonderful. Yeah, pretty much all I had. I was eating dinner. I'm going to go back to that. Sucks that the teachers are not going to get a pay increase this year. Is what it is. That's the fight we have to fight. We'll do what we can in the school to support them as much as we can. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening. I'm hungry.
Thank you.
Do we have any other additional comments on this agenda item?
PJ Fedham Manor parent again. Just like the board, this is, I would say, not just disappointing, but embarrassing for the district. And I think we really, you're talking about the 4% of teachers that are leaving because of salary specifically, and it's in a later item, but we talk about the increase in agency fees. I think the board should have presented to it very explicitly the cost of attrition every year as an expense to really think about it and help grapple with how much of that money going to salary or even the stipend that is going out this year would offset some of the gains. And I think it's a marvel that our test scores and results are going up despite it. I was looking at the census data and the census tables where they rank the states in relation to public elementary, secondary school finance amounts for $1,000 of personal income. And RVSD's state and local revenue is the equivalent of Indiana or 46th if it was a state. And the California statewide total is we're at $26.40 per $1,000 of personal income. California statewide is $40.57 per $1,000 of income. So when we talk about what our funding is relative to the state, we're not really considering what our funding is relative to the state when you factor in the relative net worth of the community. And I think the community would be embarrassed to know that they're funding their schools at a 46 out of 50 states in the US wide level. And this is the impact that it's having. And when we talk about the economic climate and the tariffs and the taxes and the rent and cost of living expenses, those should not be we can't raise the money because of this. This is all the things that the increase has to pay for. And I'm afraid of attrition increasing more than it already is.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, I will close public comment. Do we have discussion appeared for the board?
It's terrible. Period. But it's a fire under our butts.
And the relationship that Tyler, you've created across the district is awesome. We heard that the Budget Advisory Committee, people know where we are. People know we're not hiding money anymore. Not a tree that's in your office. Right.
We never were hiding money.
People
We're not-
say-
People are not- People are
Accusing, right?
They don't think not that we're not hiding in it.
Right.
I just want to clarify that. I know that's what you meant.
One thing I heard from someone that I talk to pretty frequently is there's a big difference between transparency and clarity. Transparency, if someone wants to know our budget, it's posted online. We're fully transparent. You can go leaf through that thing, print it out, highlight it, run it through ChatGPT, talk to a consultant. We're transparent. But having it posted online is not clear. There are lots of people that can't read that document. It's a difficult document to read. Clarity is making something complex simple for the average San Anselmo or Fairfax resident or teacher to understand. And I think that's where Chris and our team has done a really remarkable job of making something complex digestible and simple so people clearly understand it. And that's where you get a relationship with the union to say, okay, we're going to take 0%, even though we're disappointed about it, because we understand the context. That's why I'm I'm embarrassed about the 0%, but I'm proud about the collective understanding of where we are.
And I think one of the reasons I worked so hard on Measure E was I didn't want to end up here. I know our teachers deserve more than 0%. I know it, in my core. And I worked so hard because I knew this was a result, and we've had it on all the presentations. This is one of the ramifications of us not passing Measure E. So I've got this top of my mind when I'm thinking of what we have to do for the next one and what we need to look at and how we make sure we do pass it, because I don't want to see a 0% on here ever again as a trustee, ever. As a citizen, I don't want to see that. I know what our teachers are worth, and it's not this. So yeah, this is both disappointing, but also I'm really thankful that we do have a relationship with our teachers, that they understand that we're doing our best for them, and we're going to keep doing that. I'm going to work twice as hard on the next measure whenever that comes about. But I'm just, it's sad.
And I don't personally regret going out for the special election. I think, the superheroes, Anna Twigg, Anna Marsh, you, others, to name them all, busted butts to educate and get this going, and we exceeded what we were expected to in terms of the outcome and the results, right? We were just shy of passing it. So I think that going out again is a logical step. I feel confident that it's going to be successful with the same superheroes, I hope, coming forward. But I really hope that this doesn't result in attrition. I really hope we don't lose any more of our great teachers. It's hard to not get a raise for 2 years running, right? So I just want to recognize the teachers that are staying, knowing we're working our butts off to try to get this changed.
I mean, that's why I started coming to board meetings a couple years ago, was I did not understand. It was not easy.
Yeah.
Nothing was clear. Teachers didn't know, like our community didn't know, like why are we not paying our teachers more? And from then to now, I feel like we are working as a team. People do understand. It's become, it's not the board against everybody else. It's much, and I have seen that change and been a part of it, and that feels good. This is so sad. I dug through my closet today. I'm like, I have to have something red, but it's the only thing I own that's red. Yeah, it breaks my heart. I mean, my kids are in 2nd and 4th grade, and they have had the best teachers. They don't care who they have every year because they're all so good. And yeah, I mean, it's my number one priority, and this is what we need to, I want it for all our kids in our community. And we're gonna work hard.
I also wanted to add to, coming back from the California School Board, CSBA, California School Board Association conference as well. I'm hearing from some other colleagues around the state.
Yeah.
Also just added more appreciation to the working relationship that has been developed to move through this, from what I've heard from other colleagues in other districts across the state and what they're going through. Again, nobody's happy with, it's weird to say nobody's happy with the outcome, but it was awesome the way that you've been able to work together, and I feel hopeful for the future with the last presentation, this presentation, the work, the groundwork, the foundation that's been laid, so I'm feeling disappointed and hopeful, and I also really appreciate extending that concept of who should feel embarrassed or disappointed to like the entire community, not just, the school district should be doing this, or the school district should be disappointed in the fact that it didn't pass, or the school district should be disappointed that you're at the bottom. It's like, no, it's all of us, because it's the community that comes together to help fund our school district. That's public education. So I really appreciated that extension of, it's not just, it's everybody that needs to feel this.
Do we have any other discussion on this one? Otherwise, I think we have to vote to accept this one or not.
So the action is to
approve the tentative agreement.
approve the tentative agreement. So there's no longer tentative.
Correct. So would you like to make a motion?
So I'll make a motion that we approve the tentative agreement between Ross Valley School District and the Ross Valley Teachers Association to resolve negotiations for the 25-26 school year and the AB 1200 disclosure.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Daniel?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye. Our next item is recommended approval of the 2025-26 first interim budget reports. Go ahead, Chris.
So before Chris gets started, I just want to name two quick things. Some of you may have read a Marin IJ article, I think a week or two ago, about Marin districts losing 2% of their enrollment. In that article, buried kind of towards the bottom, was actually some data showing Ross Valley's actually increasing their enrollment. I say that now just to name that a lot of districts are making cuts and having challenges with their budget right now, and a lot of it has to do with either A, sunsetting COVID funds, or B, decreasing enrollment. We certainly are facing the same things. We are seeing some sunsetting funds from COVID. However, we are seeing slight upticks in our enrollment. Part of that is expanding TK, part of that is our messaging and our communication to the community. But I just wanted to kind of name that before we dive into the first interim. So Chris, take it away.
So the first thing first of all, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the first interim with you this evening. But the first thing we wanted to do was to kind of give you an overview of where we are as we stand right now. And you've heard earlier, Tyler was talking about us being in the bottom 4% of the state in terms of our LCFF revenues. That's really a critical thing to understand. But then the other component of that is we have gone from a community funded district last year to a state aid funded district this year. And so they consider that to be teetering, and we expect to teeter back into community funded next year. And so we have these large swings in our LCFF revenue. So that's where we are within our budget the current year and moving forward into our multi-year projections. As Tyler was alluding to just a moment ago, our enrollment is up as a district, and that is primarily due to TK students, and there are offsets with our revenues. But the other part of that is at the same time, we have a lot of absences due to illness. And as such, our attendance rates are starting to drop as well. So that's important to kind of have in the back of our minds.
But that's cyclical because we're in a middle of a flu walking pneumonia epidemic, right? So that by spring, hopefully that will.
What we traditionally see is a higher attendance rate percentage. So if we say that 99% of our kids come to school the first day of school, by the time you get to the end of the year, your average is somewhere around 95%, 96%. But in between, it may have fluctuated. And so it generally drops throughout the year. So as we look at it right now, what we've seen it drop lower than we were even last year at the same point.
The last 3 years, we were 93%, 94%, 95%. So in the last 3 years, we're increasing. So far this year, we're at 94.2. What Chris is saying, that usually your numbers are a little higher in the fall and they kind of dwindle. But past performance isn't always indicative of future performance. So I think what we can do is continue to message the community, send your kids to school, unless they're throwing up or have a fever, send your kids to school because it makes a big difference. Again, we talked about this a lot last year. Every kid in a classroom is $75 a day for the school. If you do that on average, it's about $500,000 of lost revenue. And I'll talk a little bit more about this difference of funding. Many states fund their schools based on enrollment, not attendance. California is rare in that it funds on attendance. There is some legislation in the works to move it to enrollment, and that would help us to the tune of $500,000 to $800,000. And that's real money that we need. So I'll talk more about that later.
So the other thing that is important to note is as you start to get towards the weeds a little bit more, our parcel tax revenues, you see what's built into our multi-year projections. It's important to note that in the fourth year out, we would have to, as it stands right now, remove all of our parcel tax revenues. So that's the reason for the agenda item that we had discussing with Godby related to the questions. The other thing that's important is negotiations. And negotiations, we do have the RVTA settlement that was just approved by the governing board. And again, thank you to RVTA for all of the hard work on that. And there is a lot more work for us to do on our end related to revenues. But we still have CSEA and management not settled. So those are future impacts potentially with the district. There's been some positive changes to the district budget. We have, in terms of our revenues, we have LCFF revenues, which the higher enrollment and higher TK numbers have increased our attendance and our LCFF revenues. Our federal revenues are up. We had something that happened this year. It's the first time I've ever had this happen where I actually questioned numbers from the state. And we were in a meeting, Julia and I, were in a meeting with the County Office of Education, and they shared our new Title I allocation. And I went, that's double what we would traditionally get. Is there a mistake? And the County Office of Education went back to the state, and the state went through the numbers with a fine-tooth comb and came back and said, because your poverty numbers have been going up in the district, you now qualify for a little bit more money. And so our federal revenues have gone up by 86,000. It's something that could go away in the future, but it is a positive within our budget right now. The other thing that's positive is we have the new one-time grant, that the new student support and professional development block grant that we received at the beginning of the year with the June budget adoption. So that got built in, plus some additional state dollars. And then we also have $24,000 in more facility use beyond what we had budgeted for.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's all positive news.
Two quick things. The local revenues for 24K, that is our revised facilities use agreement. People paying for the use of our fields and our gyms. So we get to put that right back into our fields and make our fields better for the community. So that's a big positive. The state revenue, that is actually all spent already. Half of it just went to the RVTA settlement, that $1,000 off schedule, straight out of that bucket.
That was my question.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the other half of it is to pay our counselors who we've cut from the budget, but are backfilling for one more year with this. So that is a positive in the budget, but also we've already have a plan to spend it.
Okay.
So with all the positives, there are negatives. And so I kind of detailed the numbers off to the right, but different things that kind of go into making those up. We just had a salary settlement that was agreed upon. Those are negatives that you see. You see them in terms of employee benefits and salaries. You have continued use of agency staff for unfilled positions. And so what we've done is reduced our salary and benefits for positions that we have to budget for at the beginning of the year and then move those dollars into agency as we're spending those, and we'll keep those dollars there. And if we hire somebody, then they go back into employee salary and benefits.
So just as like an oversimplified version of that, we budget $100,000, round number, for a teacher. But if we can't fill the position, we have to go to an agency. It costs us $120,000. So that increases the budget at first interim, because we would logically assume that we're going to budget for one of our teachers, and if we can't fill it, we've got to go out to the agency at about a 20% premium.
And it's just kind of shifting.
And when we go to these agencies, are they on retainer? Do we continuously pay them anyway to tap into their services, or we only pay them when we need them to fill?
We only pay for actual services rendered.
Okay.
So they submit to us like more or less like a time card for the person who
Okay.
they submit.
All right, just checking.
Did the agency compare this, I'm just curious, right now compared to a year ago? Are we about the same generally, would you say?
We have hired a few more staff this year.
We just replaced a resource teacher that was an agency hire with a certificated hire. So we're always looking and trying.
And we've hired several instructional aides as well, for example, for agencies. So there's some of that.
So good example, we had a position at Whitehill. We budget the $100,000, the hypothetical $100,000. We had to hire the $120,000 agency person. We kept that position posted so we could get an internal hire. We internally hired, now we're paying the internal rate, not the agency rate. So that's a win. On the flip side, we have an SDC where we have an agency person in the special day class because we couldn't find an internal person. The other option is just to not have a certificated teacher there, and then there's all these settlement agreements that we have to do with special ed families because we don't have a certificated teacher in there. So at a 20% premium, it's like, yes, please, here you go.
No, that's an essential role. We need that.
So I think the agency thing is complex and unfortunate. Every district in the state of California is facing this, and we want to do everything we can to hire internal. If you've got great people that want to work in our district, let us know. We're always hiring.
I mean, agency, it goes beyond schools. It is a problem everywhere. A problem in my opinion.
But you raise a good point though, because these aren't linear costs. These are tentacled costs that become bigger because if we lose a resource person and we can't meet the needs of that student, then we're facing a lawsuit down the road, and we don't have a leg to stand on. If we can't meet the services with that kid, we're looking at an additional 6 figures at some point, right? So, yeah.
You're better served
And this kind of
spending.
goes back to parcel tax. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It all goes back to that.
It all comes back to the parcel tax.
It's a good point though, right? So that SDC, the special day class position that we have a current agency person in, if we had bigger salaries, we could hire that position
Exactly.
and get the person in. The
Right.
same story could be told for Spanish at Whitehill.
Right.
We've had a little bit of a revolving door. Very difficult to bring someone in when you've got to drive down Sir Francis Drake and they've got Spanish openings in all those districts that pay way more. So why would you drive all the way to, deep Fairfax for a 30% less pay?
And kind of going along that same theme, that kind of gets into the staffing and student needs. So things change throughout the year. So what we budgeted for might be different than where we're at right now, and we need to hire additional positions, that type of thing. And so those things get built into the first interim. We also have one-time related costs, things such as the parcel tax, special education review, which we're doing currently, some grant writing, hopefully looking for additional revenue sources that are out there that are built in. And that's not an all-inclusive list. There's a lot more, but those types of things are built in. And then you get into other things that are your categorical funds, like your carryover dollars that we are spending dollars on. Things like your new textbook adoption, like your TK furniture for all of the new TK classrooms that we were purchasing for at the beginning of the school year. So all of those go into those budgets and help to drive those costs up. It's not unusual for this to happen where you get these large swings to start the year at first interim. It's something that's really common.
And I know, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ann.
I was gonna say, what you just mentioned, the textbooks, that's the supplies?
That
Is that
goes
what
under the
that's
supplies,
supplies?
yes. Along with the TK classroom furniture,
Yeah.
ends up under supplies as well.
And I know it takes a lot of person power to do this and resources, but in tough times, we do tough things. And my understanding is there are grants out there that we probably haven't even explored, correct? Or I'm sure you have, I don't know. How are we approaching that universe? Like, I know that there have been some grants that you've applied for that we've gotten, which has been wonderful, but have we explored other opportunities to tap into potential grants? Something as simple as a garden grant to, I don't know. I don't know what's out there, but I'm just trying to understand how we can grasp at straws for some type of money coming in.
Anytime I see a CDE grant, I look at it and I'll forward it to Chris and we'll kind of mull it over. A lot of times they require matching funds. So in order to get 500,000, you got to pay 500,000, and we just don't have that kind of money. We have worked with the County Office of Education to do a CTE or career technical education grant for our Makers Lab at Whitehill, but that's $10,000. We're also spending, I think it's about $7,000 on a grant writer who knows the whole world of grants out in the United States, and he's applying for some grants. So things that I wouldn't know even exist, he knows that they come up, and he'll apply for a few of them for us.
That's great.
What's the timeline on that?
It just depends on the grant.
Ongoing?
He just applied for one, and there's gonna be another one in the spring. The two that we're targeting are all around school safety, so could fend things like fencing and cameras and updated things just to keep our campuses safe and secure. Training for our staff with an earthquake or a fire or any other thing that would happen on campus.
It's good to know.
Chris, I would also say, I think grants are helpful for one time or for equipment or capital kind
That's
of
right.
things. But I really would shy away from any kind of grant funding for an ongoing known expense, because then it's just so much, it's unstable. We should, through our public funding as a public institution, fund ourselves not on annual bake sales,
I'm not implying that we should
Okay.
have an annuitized approach to it. I'm just thinking at this point, after agreeing to
Yeah.
a 0% raise to our teachers and looking at these
We
negative
should be looking
numbers,
at everything.
we should be grasping at everything we can right now, just to fill the gap.
Yeah.
And so for instance, this one thing that we applied for and I'm hoping we get is built into it is some training for teachers that would require them to come a day early in the summer, that we would pay them their daily rate. So it would be like a 0.5% raise for them baked into this training. So we're trying to get creative with how can we use safety dollars to get some one-time money to our teachers and improve our, security for students.
So it's going towards salaries, but for one-time type things, as opposed to something that for somebody's position.
Yep.
Right.
That's creative.
We're trying.
When looking at our general fund, what you can see here is in the 25-26 year, we now show a deficit of $3,080,000 in 25-26, and we do show our deficit dropping substantially in the general fund moving forward in 26-27 and 27-28. The other thing that is important to note on this slide is just, we talked about being a teeter district. You see us teetering back and forth down at the bottom.
You go back to that one?
No.
If you're a teetering district, what that means is that you essentially receive the bare minimum level of funding that you could get from the state. That's what it means. The deeper you are into state aid or the deeper you are into community funded means you have more money than the state would give you as a base grant. This essentially shows that Ross Valley School District gets the base. So whoever the founding women and men of the LCFF decided, well, this is the absolute bare minimum we would ever need to give a school district. That's what we get.
You also see it kind of to dovetail on that. You see it penned out in the LCFF revenues. If you look at the 24-25, it's 19.6 million and it's 19.3 million in 25-26. And so that's because we received more money in 24-25 due to increased property taxes. So you see these large swings in our revenues. The other thing that is important to note, this is a slide that we've shown before. When looking at our adopted budget versus our first interim, you do see things that have gone into it getting worse. Things such as the salary settlement. For example, you've got some one-time costs that go in there. And again, some of those other things that we were talking about that, services, et cetera, that are ongoing expenses that are increasing. And so we still are above 3%, but it's important to note that those are getting pretty tight for us. And from a CBO perspective, these can be kind of scary.
Just another talking point that we've talked about for about 18 months. The state requirement in that third year out is 3%. We're at 4.2 there. The board policy is 10%. We're at 4.2. And the state average for elementary school districts is 25%. So well below that.
And again, coming back to the parcel tax. We've only been able to weather this situation because in 21, 22, 22, 23, 23, 24, we had in reserves what we had.
Yep.
So we've been able to weather this, eke out, not have to make crazy cuts so far, except for this time, give a little bit of raises that we could give simply because we had those reserves.
Mm-hmm.
If we are now saying, which I'm not saying, because I think if we somehow recalibrate downward that the new normal is now 4%, or we're saying, well, the state only said 3%, so let's just hang out at 3%, we will not be able to weather anything else ever again, and we will be constantly in a state of turmoil, even with a parcel, even with, so it's just another one of those factors when we go out and ask for what we need. I know we can't ask for huge reserves, but I do think it's important for us to note that if we don't have adequate reserves, we don't have anything to weather anything again. So
That's a really good point, Shelley.
Chris, can you go back one slide real quick? I had a thought and see if it can come back to me. So if you look at 24-25, Down in the net change in fund balance, you see 2.6 million deficit. And then in 25-26, you see $3 million deficit in brackets there. That's the fiscal cliff that Chris has been talking about. That's it, right there. It's not the 23-24 year, because that's relatively reasonable. It's the 24-25 and the 25-26, those big numbers, that's the fiscal cliff. We had to have revenue, or we had to have reserves in order to weather that fiscal cliff. We're there, we're getting dangerously close, but we either have to increase revenue through attendance, enrollment, or increase local funding, or we have to cut student programs. Those are our options.
And I just want to also give a shout out to past board members as the person who, like the historian who's been here. I just want to give a shout out to past board members who took a lot of heat in decades ago to maintain, go back to the next slide, to maintain the reserves at what they were in 21, like pre-21-22, and the people who were sitting in our seats really took a lot of heat
For having that
level
reserves.
of revenue.
Yeah.
And I just want to shout out some appreciation to them, because had they not been able to understand the importance of that, we in these seats now would not be able to be making the decisions that we've been able to make.
And
So
Chris keeps saying
I don't know if they're listening or whatever, but I'm just feeling a moment of appreciation for the heat that they took for that.
Yeah. Chris keeps saying salary settlements. There really wasn't a salary settlement. There was a health and welfare benefits settlement because we gave 0%. But without these reserves, you could see a world in which we don't keep up with the cost of health and welfare benefits, and that is an effective reduction in salary for staff and teachers, because we wouldn't be covering health and welfare benefits for single payer. So the reserves helped us from giving, actually a reduction in salary.
So next steps. One of the things that we have to do is go through AB 1200. AB 1200 looks at, it was put in place by the state because districts went belly up and went to the state for emergency loans. And so the County Office of Education has the oversight of our district. And so they have to approve each of our budgets. And at the budget adoption, they gave us a quote in here where they're in essence requiring us at first interim to come up with a plan on how we're going to eliminate those deficits in the future so that we can maintain those reserves and have the ability to move as we go forward as a district in the whole. And so what we are doing here is showing, first we had the budget advisory committee. So we went through and had a budget advisory committee meeting in November. Then we had a follow-up meeting last Thursday here in December. And what we were doing is helping to prioritize and look at budget cuts for recommendations to the governing board. The Board of Trustees in a agenda item after this will be discussing what that budget cut plan will look like. And so we have to come up with that plan for cuts into the future. That those aren't cuts that are going to be made this year, not cuts necessarily for next year either. But it's things that are out there for the 27-28 year. And then we also are looking at potentially very seriously looking at parcel tax renewal and increase. Obviously, that's something that has to happen. And the other thing that Tyler has talked about several times this evening has to do with our enrollment and our attendance, and really focusing on that. That's kind of what we need to refocus on. Just moving forward, those types of things.
Can I ask a question about enrollment and attendance? And forgive me if I'm asking a stupid question. But if we start off the school year strong, as we always have, and the pattern is that it does eventually go down, what long-term impact do we actually get from focusing on enrollment and attendance when it always deviates from the highest number we need for it to make an impact?
So the way that the attendance works is we get
It's counted at that one point in time, right?
one point in time, which is our P2 attendance report. So,
Okay.
and
Enrollment, not attendance.
So
both, there is a one point in
How
time.
do we work that?
I was just gonna say, so theoretically, if we know what the P2 date is, we could be like, we're going to class this day.
Right.
I'm just guessing. I mean,
I'm just trying to figure out,
How
like,
does
we
this
can
work?
focus on it as an idea, but the actual realization of the benefit of that number is going to be tossing the dice and preaching something that's not going to work in the long run, right?
So I'm going to take a step back just for a second, because you talked about two different things. So when you're talking enrollment, from a budgetary standpoint, I count enrollment as a single day. That single day is all of the children that were enrolled in the school on the first Wednesday in October. That's called our CBEDS date. So for me, that's the important date for enrollment.
Okay.
And that kids could come at a 50% rate that day, and Chris still has the enrollment number, not the attendance number.
Okay.
So they're enrolled in school. For attendance, it's an accumulation of how many days that they're coming to school every day. So
It's an averaging and accumulation of every time the teacher's taking attendance. It's not just a snapshot.
correct. And so that is a date at the end of March, and it fluctuates every year. It's not a set date.
So going back to my original question is, if attendance starts to go dwindle over time anyway, how are we going to put a dent in that when we're in the 90s, 94%?
I think it's like it's a question of how deep is the slide, right?
Yeah.
So if we start the year off on day one at 99%, how long can we maintain somewhere around 97%, which is kind of pre-pandemic numbers? Or during the pandemic, you would see it go down to like low 90s. So what you want to do is basically maintain as high a rate as possible. It's not a predictable, the decline is not a predictable amount.
Why does the state do 2 different times of year?
It's just the way they do it. So one, again, is the enrollment, and the other is your attendance. And your attendance, again, is an accumulation.
So to move us on, the bottom point there is, I think one thing we've started to do is some state advocacy. So we're doing everything we can: attendance, enrollment, grant writing, budget cuts, local funding, state advocacy. We're not leaving a stone unturned. The state advocacy, there's a 2-year assembly bill called Assembly Bill 1204 that has a few different provisions in it, one of which is a regional cost of living calculator bump. So for places like Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, and Marin County, there would be a recognition that it's a high cost of living area, and you would need a little bit more to fund your schools. That is literally for us. We need to advocate for AB 1204. I'd invite any community member, parent or otherwise, to get on board and help us advocate for AB 1204. Within AB 1204 and another assembly bill that's out there, there is a provision to start doing just enrollment and not attendance. That's what I talked about a little while ago. It would be about a $500,000 to $800,000 boon to us if we were just funded on enrollment, not attendance.
I remember hearing a couple of years ago that we want that, but other districts would lose money. So I don't know if that's still true, but we get more money, other places are gonna have to lose money. So that's the fight. That it's not just great, we'll just give everybody more money.
Well, what it does is
I don't understand
it
why.
narrows the gap a little bit between a community funded district and a basic aid district, which, to your point, is like okay with us. We are kind of a teetering district, getting the base minimum from the state, and we're surrounded by, there was a great article in EdSource not too long ago, that there are a few districts in the state that are like us, that are on the bottom of the funding level, but they're surrounded by deep basic aid districts. And it's very difficult to run a district when your competition is able to, far outpace you.
And I was just going to talk about it in relation to our first bullet up there. The LCFF was originally put in to kind of level the playing field for all districts, but what has happened is that districts, and it seems to be primarily here in the Bay Area, that are really high cost of living districts, you might have a really low Prop 13 property rate within your district boundaries because homes aren't turning over at a real high level. And so it might cost a fortune to get in to one of those homes, but they're not selling. And what ends up happening is that lower tax base has a negative impact on districts, and you end up with a district like us that is in the bottom 4% of the state. Even though we're in a really high cost of living area, our properties are really pricey. And if we were to sell every one of them, we'd be probably deep in community funded status and wouldn't be having this type of a discussion. So that's just something.
I mean, that is it. That is huge. Like that education piece right there is what with Measure E, a lot of people they don't know that. And it's certainly our job, our community here, to educate people of that, because a lot of people still assume that, wait, what? Our property tax? Like they don't know that piece of Prop 13 and how the percentage of our community that, like you said, the homes. And that is our job, all of us, to educate the community to understand that.
For sure. So then the other thing that's really important to note, and from an education standpoint, is that our district LCFF revenues are roughly $2,720 less than the statewide average. And if you were to look at our students, that's about $4.6 million.
That's what I was talking about, the size of the problem earlier. The difference between our $11,771 per pupil revenue versus the state average of $14,494 is that $2,720. Multiply that by our 1,720 students, that's $4.6 million. That's the size of the problem. That's just the average. 80% of that is $3.6 million. So even Measure E was asking for less than that. And what we polled on recently was somewhere between 2.9 and 3.6. So not even getting us to the statewide average. And this is where I think the community needs to come out and share, where do we want to fall? Do we want to go significantly less than Measure E, or should we go closer to what the size of the real problem is? I'm eager to hear from folks.
And then just finally, to double down on what Tyler was mentioning a few moments ago, we welcome any assistance from the community in getting out that advocacy at the state level for any of those bills, and just, getting more funding to a district like Ross Valley in general. So, and with that, I think I am done. I know we've had a lot of questions already, but are there any other questions?
Ooh, sorry.
That's okay. It actually works better that way because then you get.
Yeah, in a moment.
Yeah.
I have one. What was it? The third slide, the federal revenue up 86,000. How much is that? Would you say that's equal? Like, is that equivalent to what we spend for that on the students? Or does that end up a net positive, net negative? Like, how does that?
Well, we only spend it in things that we can afford. So what we do with the dollars, we primarily use it for intervention teachers. So that's the type of services that we would use it for.
And our the total cost of our intervention program far exceeds what we get from Title I. So this increase in Title I will help offset some of our general fund obligation that we pay towards that program. So it's not gonna, no new programs, but a little bit of relief.
Right, okay.
Could you go to the slide where you listed year out, no, fourth year out has a 0 to it? It was like the
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble going back on the slides.
It's the parcel tax revenues where it drops to 0 in 2028.
I just wanted to look at those dates because for our next conversation about when
Slide
we have to
two.
make. I think what I'm hearing is that the idea of having to make cuts coincides with that 0. And so I just wanted to look at the dates and
One more.
clarify
It's
that.
28,
There we go.
29.
But we have to make cuts in the 27-28 year because we know that this is the if the parcel tax doesn't pass scenario kind of thing, partially, is that the,
Yes, and so in order to have a positive budget in the 27-28 school year, we're gonna have to cut at least $1 million. However, you have June of this year or November of next year to pass a parcel tax. If it doesn't happen in November, the cuts that we'll have to make for 28-29 far exceed what we'll talk about tonight.
yes. Right,
So
so
when you
that,
say June of this year, you mean this school year?
Yes, so
Okay,
June of
just
this school year,
clarifying.
if there are not increased local revenues, we're gonna have to cut a minimum of $1 million. We'll talk about that in the next, agenda item. And then if something doesn't happen for local revenue in November of next school year of 2026, the size of the cuts are much more significant and the implications are
astronomical.
they're huge. I will talk about them specifically in the next item.
I just wanted to look at this time frame, both for this, because I know we are looking at our budgets in 3-year tranches.
When
and
Chris
then that 4th year is what the 3-year tranche is couple.
when Chris comes to you with a budget in June, likely potentially right before the parcel tax vote happens, if you all decided to go out in June, the 3rd year out is gonna have $5 million taken out of the budget. You're gonna have a negative budget
The 27-28,
for 28-29.
over 28.
Because if you
right,
look,
because it's 0.
when he had budget adoption in June, you're gonna see 26-27, 27-28, and the 3rd year out is gonna be 28-29 with a loss of $5 million in local
Because
revenue.
that's where the parcel drop off.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board on this one?
No more questions, we will open it up to public comment.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chris.
Good evening, everyone. So looking at all this stuff, it seems very dire. And I was at a meeting yesterday in regards to Live on the Avenue, and all these young families that are kids go to go to Ross Valley School District. They had over 200 responses because they were going to move Live on the Avenue to just one night. So the problem is communication. You can get Michael Kristoff from It's a Vibe and get Ryan Scott and all these guys putting out stuff because they're going to cut one day from Live on the Avenue because some of the business, it hurts their businesses. And we can't get those same people to look at this stuff. So what the problem is, what people feel is important is what the problem is. The other point I'd like to make is when we're talking about advocacy, Tyler, we need people that are going to be going to our state representatives then. Damon, I think Jared. And why aren't we doing that? So it seems like we're going from the bottom up instead of top down. And so we need to rethink how we're going to be doing these things and making sure that the people are getting this information, because if they feel that Live on the Avenue is more important than us losing our school, our teachers, and all the other things, instead of pointing out what Prop 13's doing and all this other stuff, we all know that. What we need to do is get them to understand what's important to them, going downtown and having fun on a Friday instead of a Saturday or vice versa, or keeping the best teachers in our school district. So your messaging has to change. I sit here and listen, and it's Groundhog Day. You guys are saying the same thing over and over again for 3 years. We need to try a different approach. Thank you for your time.
Do you have any other public comments?
Just one second, EJ.
It's a brand new system.
Okay, appreciate your patience, thank you.
PJ Pepper, Manor Parent. First, thank you for the presentation, Chris. My only criticism is I feel like asking about the Title I money is like you're the student asking the teacher to remind them to give us more homework with whether or not we got too much money. One thing that the board hasn't discussed yet in detail for this budget, we discussed it a little bit in terms of the agency fees, is the services spending and the professional services, the object, 5800 line item code. And, I understand this is an issue facing everybody, but comparing to the 4 peer districts that we use for the other sort of budget presentations, Larkspur, Corte Madera, Kentfield, and Miller Creek, we are still the outlier, significantly. And it's a big number. I mean, just overall services from our adopted budget to this one going from 4.9 million to 6.4 million, almost 30% increase, and that $1.5 million would be over a 10% increase on the salary schedule. Like 1% increase on the salary schedule is $140,000. So, getting that percentage increase down to match, the 14.9% in Kentfield or 6.9% at Larkspur, Corte Madera, and trying to cut those back is the something percentage salary increase. Tyler, brought up that there was a health and welfare increase. Otherwise, there would be a salary reduction, but there already is a salary reduction. Like the CPI for this year is 3.09%. So not getting that is a salary, getting 0% as opposed to 3.09 is a salary reduction. And then, just a point I've made before, but especially in light of the conversation on having to pay more for agency fees and having to pay more for settlements for special education costs, the prior board didn't get enough heat. Having those reserves means that you're having more attrition and putting us constantly behind the 8 ball and not being able to keep our expenses down.
Any more public comment? Okay. Seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board here. Discussion on our budget.
One thing that I just want to note for everyone is that we are looking at this from every single angle. We are looking at it from increased revenue through local funding, i.e. the parcel tax, enrollment with marketing, attendance with our attendance campaign, grant writing, and we're looking for budget reductions through our budget advisory committee, and we are doing letter writing campaigns and advocacy at the state level for state legislation to change the LCFF. So there is not a rock unturned. We're taking this extremely seriously, and we're not leaving any potential option for increased revenue or budget reductions off the table at this point.
I want to go back to what Anna said earlier about how before she became part of Measure E and came onto the board, she was like, what's going on? Why can't we pay our teachers more? Why are we not? People move here for the schools. Mm-hmm. I know we did. And what are we missing from I've always thought this, from a marketing perspective, right? Like, we can talk about this at these meetings. The same people will listen, the same people will show up. But what are we doing with marketing to the people that just bought the $2 million home down the street and are planning to have children go to the schools, I'm trying to figure out what are we missing? Everyone should be chanting everywhere, ubiquitously the same thing. We're living in $1 million homes in a Kentucky education system. Okay?
Funding, not outcomes, but funding.
Outcomes are amazing. Outcomes are amazing, but the funding, and where's the disconnect? Are we failing, or I'm just trying to wrap my head around this, because when I moved here, I thought the same thing. And now that I'm sitting up here, I'm kind of like, what made my light bulb go off is because I had to study this stuff. But not everybody does that. So we've got to figure out how to shift the message.
I mean, you're telling somebody sitting in a $2 million home whose kids are getting an awesome education that we're broke. And they're just like, that doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense.
But it's true, because the way that education is funded is this crazy outlier of any kind of somebody's rational business funding models that the person who's living in the $2 million home probably was educated in their business school on, and they're thinking, well, schools are run like businesses, right? But those economic dials are not the same.
But talk to me like I'm in the 3rd grade and I have 20 seconds of your time. That's what we need to do.
What?
More.
I guess we're always talking about we need more. What's the goal?
Our elementary schools are approximately 260 to 275 kids.
Yeah.
They have capacity for probably closer to 350 or 400. Okay. I would have to look into the numbers with Chris on that, but another 400 kids, 500 kids in the district. Okay. If we were up closer to 2,000 students, that would be pretty good.
And how many, I'm curious, compared to other counties, of people living in our district are going to private schools versus Moraine County? I feel like that's got to have something to do with it too. Like, we can't fault,
it's pretty standard across the state. It's usually about 30% of whatever the community is goes to private. And public school enrollment has been declining, and so has private school. So, you'll hear the anecdote of someone leaving for private school, or a couple people leaving a school to go to a different private school for something. But it's pretty negligible. And the more kids that we have come to us, the better, whether they're going to a charter school or a private school or any other school in the area. We want to serve every Fairfax and San Anselmo kid in our schools.
But if we bring more kids in, we have to hire more staff. So, yay, more kids. Boo, more money.
Right. And I think this is kind of the essence of what happens in Measure-E in these conversations. We start getting into the weeds, because you're right, more kids in the LCFF year, that's a good thing. We have more money. But the next year when we're basic aid, it hurts us. Yeah. The core thing is there's 995 districts in the state of California. We rank 959 out of funding. If we want good schools, we have to find another way to fund them. And the hard thing is, when people are thinking about go get money then, the way schools are funded are through property taxes. That's it. There's no other way they come. The money we get from the state is from property taxes. It just goes from the property tax to the state to us. And then the parcel tax is just straight from the parcel to us. It doesn't go to the third party. So there's no other way to find money that's ongoing other than increased property taxes.
So I think if someone...
Whether it's from the state level, if we advocate at the state level and increase the LCFF, that means an increase to property taxes. That's what it looks like.
Well, back to Daniel's comment initially, I think if someone knocked on my door and said, would you pay a little bit more than you pay to have your garbage picked up, to have your schools be able to rise above the lowest level of funding, it's a no-brainer. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think the simplistic messaging, I just want to make sure we just put that in front of us. That has to be right there in front of us as we start to move forward with this. You want to pay more to have your garbage picked up.
It's sewer. Specifically sewer.
Let's say your sewer, even better. You want to pay more for your sewer than you will for the schools. I mean,
I think the message from the community members is accurate. It's all about messaging.
okay,
And I think that is,
and that's a,
it,
we'll
and
toss
it's
that
keeping
down the
it
road.
simple.
Let's toss that ahead, but I think we need to really make sure that as we move forward, we don't get caught up in the weeds.
But what can we do here between now and January 27th, February 11th to get, again, more people in the room that are messaging professionals, that understand social sciences, that understand how people think and how we can create this simple message?
Consultants. And so like Teresa and I have been working on our third installment of the community newsletter that gets mailed to everybody in Fairfax and San Anselmo. My message will be about the parcel tax. And I'm inviting people in that message to come to January 27th and February 11th to have your voice heard around the parcel tax. Yeah. We're also designing a flyer that is another invitation directly, specifically for those two board meetings with some messaging. We're doing it, it's the superintendent and the admin assistant. We're not hiring consultants. So my guess is these are gonna hit mailboxes and people are gonna go like, this isn't as polished as it should be. But if we hired a consultant, they'd be like, I spent $30,000 on a consultant. So you're gonna get critique either way. We're gonna do the best we can to put out the best product we can at the least cost, but those are kind of what we can do. And honestly, all of this is word of mouth. Talk to somebody, talk to 5 people, text a text chain. Like that's what this all is about. And I think to the other comment about the Live on the Avenue, people react to losing something.
Well, we're going to talk about that next.
You lose Live on the Avenue, you get fired up. The parcel tax isn't a loss to someone. It's actually an increased cost to them. So it's harder to motivate someone to say, hey, actually lose some of your money versus lose, a community event. So I think it's a harder message to dial in.
And the problem is, as far as like finding a behavioral economics person to figure out how to do this, is you've got delayed gratification. And you've got this competing messaging. So if we want more students, we'd say, we've got great schools, which we do. Our academics are great. Mm-hmm. Come and be a part of this. It's a great community, great academics, great schools. So that's a message to get the enrollment up, which helps with money. However, that message then begs the question, well, why do you need more money? You've got these great schools. Why are you asking me for more money? What you're doing is great. It's working, and you've had the money that you've had. That comes into the delayed gratification. They're great schools because they're living off of those years where we had high reserves, more money. So you're always going to have these cycles of delayed fund. You've got more money, so you invest it, you get a great outcome, but that money now is going away, and then the delayed impact to the hurt part of it is not going to show up until down the road. But we need you to vote now to keep from getting hurt. So it's like, we need you to vote now to not feel the hurt of
and that's
closing the
this
school.
is the challenge.
And that's hard to
How
sell to somebody.
How complex is that message?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the story that I like to tell is, think of it as a business, right? We are an efficient business. We spend less and get better outcomes. We spend the least in the county and get some of the best in the county results. We're proud of that. We're on the precipice of making significant cuts that will change the outcome. And if you're a business owner and you're reducing costs by hiring fewer people, you have different customer service, you've reduced prices, you don't have as much overhead, so people don't have the product they want. Eventually, your business kind of falls apart and you're not the great business you once were because you've had to reduce so much. We're on that precipice right now. Great outcomes, efficient spending. If we continue to go deeper into more efficient spending, the outcome fails.
And we need, we have urgency, so we need the education and the door knocking to get, so we can get parcel tax passed. But looking ahead, the delayed gratification, the legislators, and I do feel like there are a lot of people in our community, they do not want to door knock. That is not their thing. But people have asked, and so that's something we can spend some time educating on. Okay, who do I contact? Is there a template? We can make a template letter, like those kinds of things we can start to think about. Because I feel like it's something we're starting to talk about more. but we could do a little more community education.
So I'm gonna get us focused back on the budget.
Yeah.
Since this is
That's-
this is probably for a future conversation. Do you have any more talk about the interim budget report?
Thanks, Rachel.
No, just while it still seems complex, I appreciate the I appreciate being able to put all that education funding into whatever 6 slides or something is in and of itself a great accomplishment for bringing it to become understandable. So, thank you.
And if people don't understand, contact us. we will help.
So this is an action item.
Yes,
correct?
this is an action
Adopting
item.
this.
Yep.
And it's acceptance of, no.
It's recommended approval of the tentative agreement between, recommended approval of the 2025-26 first interim budget report.
I'll make a motion to approve the first interim budget for the 2025-2026 school year.
This is for the certification, right, Chris?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I'll second.
All right, I have a first and a second, Shelley?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And Rachel, aye. Thank you, Chris.
Drinking a lot tonight.
Okay, our next item is recommend acceptance of the budget cuts plan to be implemented in the 2027-28 school year.
Yeah, that's me. I'm gonna try to go through this one relatively quickly because the prior 3 agenda items all kind of enmesh and connect to this. And I wanna be really clear with those listening in or those in the room, we're not approving budget cuts tonight. We are approving plans in the event that we don't have increased local revenue by June. So that's this is a backup plan to our first plan, which is an increased and renewed parcel tax.
And it's for the 2027-28 school year,
Cuts will be implemented in the
Okay.
27-28 school year.
if the world doesn't fall into place.
That's right.
Okay,
And would require additional action.
right.
Yes, we would have to come back to you in June to have a deeper discussion about which items you want to choose, and would probably go back to the Budget Advisory Committee to get a little bit more refined than this framework that we're presenting you tonight.
Thank you for that clarification.
Quick question, so this satisfies the letter that I got from MCOE saying that we needed to work on a budget reduction plan?
So we will be telling MCOE we're cutting the budget by $1 million, including some of these items. It's gonna be kind of a loose plan like that. So we're gonna go through a little bit of budget context, although we just went through a lot of budget context in the last agenda item. We'll talk about the budget reductions plan and then some next steps and timeline. So, a lot of people ask me we need talking points. Watch any of the agenda items from today. There's lots of talking points woven in all of these. Lowest per pupil funding in the county, bottom 4% of the state. The district has been cutting the budget, and this is one I think people forget about. The district has been cutting the budget for 5 years. So, some of those first initial easy cuts that you would make, like cut the district office administrators, we've done that years ago. So now we're kind of down to the bone. There's an expiring parcel tax that represents 15.6% of our budget. That happens in the 28-29 school year. We have the lowest salaries in the county, and we're losing ground. You heard me talk about that in the AB 1200 item.
This is a great slide, by the way.
And the district is deficit spending, particularly that 24-25 and 25-26 year, the kind of fiscal cliff we just talked about in the last item. So right down there in the bottom, in spite of the district being really desirable, families are moving here in part because of our schools. We're seeing increased enrollment, improved attendance. Our academic outcomes are far exceeding statewide averages. We're near the top of Marin County. So in spite of all that, we're still performing pretty well. This is the letter we got from MCOE that Rachel just highlighted. Chris had in his budget item, highlighted a few things there. The budget's approved, but we're deficit spending at an unsustainable level, and we need to make cuts. That's kind of the underlying parts. That's the core of this message from MCOE. There's some other details in there that we can get into later or at another time, but that's the core of that message from MCOE. So we've had ongoing meetings with the Budget Advisory Committee. they've been meeting for, actually, sorry, misspelling there. Or actually that is past tense, met for the last 3 years. I actually remember as a prospective superintendent sitting in this room with folks back when I was still working for Santa Fe. And those meetings have come a long way. We've done a lot of work in those 3 years. Actually, last year we cut $700,000 from the budget. This year we met in October and then again just a few days ago. Members are, there's a whole bunch of parents, teachers, counselors, union leadership, district and site admin, a couple trustees, and obviously I was part of that as well. And really our task is to discuss and identify a prioritized list of budget reductions to the tune of $1 million. Last year, many of you have already seen this slide. This was kind of our backup plan or our contingency plan to Measure E. We said we'd cut $500,000. We said we might consider deeper cuts, and we said salary increases will stagnate, aka 0% to teachers. All three of those came true. We cut $500,000. We went deeper to the tune of $700,000, and we gave a 0% increase to our teachers. So that seems dramatic at the time, but was actually just the plan. It was the plan. Moving forward, these are the plans. So if we don't have increased funding by June 2026, we may need to consider $1 million of cuts. Here's some of the items. We'll talk more about that later. And salary increases will continue to further stagnate. So that's kind of the plan for next school year. $1 million in cuts, salary stagnating. Now, if it doesn't happen in November 2026, this is when that $5 million falls off the books that Chris was talking about in the last item. We could need to close a school or two at that stage. Continued salary stagnation, and there's a real potential of state receivership, in 18 months, 6 to 18 months from that date. We will be a deep negative budget at that point, and that's when, we'll lose local control of our schools. The state will come in, much like you're seeing in Hayward, Oakland, and San Francisco. So that's not really where we want to be. We want to try to find a solution, but this is kind of the plan. It's a twofold plan for June and November. Tonight we're really talking about the June 2026 cuts to $1 million. That's kind of what we're talking about. So we've kind of developed two buckets of ideas. There's a bucket of ideas that cost $100,000 or more. In order to get to $1 million, you got to pick some big ticket items. We're probably going to have to pick a couple items from this list. Instructional coach, certificated PE, potentially close a school, eliminating zero period, that's middle school electives, close 2 schools got some votes, transitioning our TK program from full day to half day, moving back to Brookside Upper and Lower instead of Hidden Valley and Brookside, actually changing kindergarten to AM PM. That one would be a pretty challenging one, but it's a potential. Eliminate art and music and move the YES funding to general fund. I actually talked to the YES Foundation president today about that. Eliminating counseling services and eliminating ELD and intervention support. We don't have to pick all this, but we're gonna have to pick a couple of these big ones. So the framework is we've got to pick a few of these big ones. We don't have to name which ones they are today, but we're gonna have to pick some of them. Then there's a bunch of cuts under $100,000. So in order to get to $1 million, we got to pick a couple of those big ones, but then we probably have to pick a handful of these as well. What I noticed from the Budget Advisory Committee is that because we had this conversation, we got to pick some big ones. Most of the dots of their votes came on this big side of the bucket. So at the bottom of this, there are some cuts that we could make that got 0 votes, but might not be as painful as something like closing a school, for instance, right? So we're gonna have to pick some of these to get us to that $1 million mark. Again, these are a little bit smaller, increased class sizes. This means kind of being more judicious with combo classes and having a few more combo classes. Let's see here, delight stipends. So that might seem kind of insignificant. It's $30,000. It's just stipends. But what that is our teacher leadership group that gives us, voice into curricular decisions. We want teachers making decisions around the curriculum, but if we're not gonna pay them after school to do it, we're gonna have to find some other way to get teacher voice into it. We put management furlough, that's 12,600 is actual furlough 1 day to all administrators, classified and certificated. So not a ton of money, but it's on the table. So I just wanna kind of sit here. The thing that scared me the most is that there was a lot of energy around closing a school, 12 votes, and closing 2 schools, 3 votes. That's pretty scary. If you look at this, you might be worried. I think there's a lot we can do as a governance team to make the $1 million of cuts before we get to that point. Closing a school is a big deal in a community. And we'd really need to think critically about having that as one of the items, but it is something that the committee talked a lot about, and there's some energy around.
Was it a philosophical reason for that, or was it just because those are big numbers that would get us there faster?
Yeah, I'm curious too.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of both. The big numbers, in order to get to $1 million, you've got to pick something that's like close to $400,000. So, getting rid of certificated PE teachers, eliminating the 0 period, those are kind of big ones that get you there pretty quick. So we're closing schools. But if you think about the impact to the community, there's a lot of tumult that happens with closing schools, as you see in districts around the Bay.
Did you get, is this question time? Sorry.
You can ask questions.
Yeah, those questions.
Did we get input from, okay, I'm gonna preface this. So there's 2 items on here that I remember living through with my kids, and it was not the end of the world. They grew up, they're great, the schools were still great. Certificated PE in elementary schools, kids used to have that taught by their teacher, my kids, not that long ago. And half day, TK transitioning to half day, also remember half day kindergarten, not TK, half day kindergarten, AM, PM, early bird, late bird, kind of stuff. So I was just wondering whether we were getting any feedback from people in our community whose kids have grown up and gone on, who might be able to speak to families who know nothing different, who've always had a PE teacher, who've always had full day kindergarten, to be able to speak with people in the community who lived through eras when we didn't have that, to be able to say, hey, it's not fun when something gets taken away, but here's my experience with it when it was that way. Or having different size classes than we have now when, your kids live through a higher, so I don't know if that might be something to
Yeah, I'd be open to talking to folks about that and getting input. There was a lot of philosophical discussion. Anything that got a lot of vote, we had a lot of conversation around. And I think that's partially why they got the votes. They got PE, some of the drawbacks there. Some of the conversation was like, well, teachers have taught it in the past, so we can teach it again in the future. The consequence there is the teachers are losing a prep period.
Yep.
And earlier when I talked about a lot of teachers stay here because of the culture and climate, working conditions, that's working conditions. So it needs to be negotiated and there's a consequence there. Also, there's another one there. Eliminating 0 period or even the TK, moving to half day. Like some people might make that are on the cusp of like, well, maybe I'll go to the more enriching, quote unquote, enriching private school because now I only get 1 elective and I want my kid to be prepared for high school. I think our middle school does an exceptional job, even with 1 elective, preparing our kids for high school, but there are certainly some people that would think otherwise. And then the TK, I think some people will go like, wait, I need to pick up my kid at noon now. I actually can't afford to do that. I'm actually going to spend the money to send my kid to preschool at a tune of $20,000, and then we don't get the ADA for those kids. So then our revenue goes down. So there was a lot of really good conversation around every one of these items. And there's, like I said earlier, we've been cutting for 4 or 5 years now. we're down to the bone where there's consequences to every one of these cuts. None of them are easy. Okay, go ahead.
Just gonna say that closing a school, that number, does that factor in the fact that like we have to secure a campus that's empty, that we have to like have security for it? Because this all came up when we were looking at Deer Park and like having an empty facility, which is nothing that I've ever wanted. But that, I don't, does that include having that? Because that's what we were talking about having to do, having security, having it gated off, having like it like protected.
You still have to manage a facility.
You still have to manage it
not
because
a
it's an
school.
empty facility,
Does
that's
that-
a liability.
So what you're asking is that number
Is that baked
include
into that? Because I don't, it does,
continued cost of.
exactly, like it seems to me that that's too low.
What I would say is that these are pretty round numbers. So if at the end of this presentation, you all wanted us to come back when we actually decide which cuts with more specific information, you would give us direction to say, can you double check that school closure number and make sure it's as accurate as possible? Or you could say something like, I actually want you to take that off the table altogether. I don't really want to talk about that when we come back. So that's kind of the guidance that we're looking for tonight. Chris, did you want to say anything about the school closure number?
I was just going to say that it generally will take that into consideration because what it's looking at mainly are the positions that are being saved. But then you also, I haven't baked in any other savings like electricity and those types of things. So you have some give on the other side.
But you would also have presumable costs of
Fencing it off or
not just that,
security.
but the other schools, you got to put those 300 students somewhere. So what are the classrooms
Portable
then
costs.
at, portable, so.
Yeah.
Just gonna say that number
So it
seems
sounds
like
like
it's
those
not
people
quite
are-
accurate. Yeah, I'd like more numbers on that particular item before we looked at closing a school, because that's like not a great
That's a
scenario.
big deal, but it also may affect that's what we're, again, these conversations are horribly awesome to participate in because it's like there's no right answer. We've done so much for the past 5 years, not affecting students, trying not to affect family, right? And not affecting teachers. And so, PE teachers can do PE, great. But, right, yeah, they've done it in the past, but this is when they're prep. Oh, okay, maybe that's not as easy. But how do you spread the costs around to the entire community, right? Even for families, people that don't have kids in the district, what impacts them and how do we, this is plan B, right? Plan A is the parcel tax. So how do we communicate, hey, these are things that are on the table, but really we want to get the entire community behind these because we wouldn't want this in our community. So it's, again, goes back to the messaging like Chris said.
Well, right, I'm sure like a lot of residents are not gonna wanna live next to a ghost property where there's nothing, just a big building waiting for people to break into or something. I mean, you could see.
And to the messaging, I think just having this list of cuts out here this is the pain that will be felt if, I mean,
It goes back to this.
Yep.
Felt dramatic last year, but it was the plan. Right now, this feels dramatic, and it is the plan. It's probably not even deep enough of a cut. We should probably go deeper than $1 million. But this is where we're at, and I think this isn't a scare tactic. This isn't, these are actually the conversations we're having. In order to get to $1 million, we've got to talk about real significant items at this point.
I have a question, some more information back to the other side, the owner. It seems to me that there's an interdependency between eliminating zero period at middle school and eliminating art, music, and more. Because if you eliminate zero period, isn't that where some of the art and music happens? So it seems like you've got 11 votes for eliminating zero period, which would by default also, but 0 for eliminating art and music. Were people aware that like if you eliminate zero period, you're possibly also, or is that not an interdependency?
What that would likely look like is, let's hypothetically say you have chorus in zero period. You cut zero period. Now chorus is in like third period, like in the day. So we haven't cut chorus
Okay.
because we're funded through yes.
Okay.
We want to fund as much in that core program through yes as possible. But what that does is it kicks out on the master schedule
Yeah.
Spanish program. So now you don't have Spanish.
Something has to give. If you
Something
take zero period away.
goes, right? You can't squeeze those zero periods into the master schedule without something coming out the other end. So our Makers Lab, that's a super popular elective that we have in middle school. Kids take it multiple years in a row. We wouldn't have potentially we wouldn't have that in the schedule anymore. Does that make sense? Because those are funded by general fund dollars, where the music and arts is funded by the foundation.
And other districts nearby have eliminated many of their electives.
That's right. We're one of, I think the only other middle school that has 2 electives is Sanderfeld. They just added that, I think, 2 years ago. But Larkspur, Corte Madera, and Kentfield have eliminated their second elective in the last few years.
What does Brookside Upper Lower specifically mean? Could you say a little more about that?
Yeah, so what you do is instead of having Brookside and Hidden Valley, it's one school.
Like it used to be.
Yeah.
Back to
So you have TK through 3rd at Brookside, and you have 4th and 5th, or 3rd, 4th, and 5th up at Hidden Valley campus.
Right.
And what that does is it gives you a little bit of efficiency. So instead of having a combo class or classes that with like 17 kids, you kind of max out capacity and you might save on a teacher or 2 max.
Okay. Thank you.
So pretty disruptive.
Not a huge.
You can live with it, like the community already lived with it, there's no doubt. But it would be disruptive. So all this to say, these are some potential things we can talk about after the partial tax vote. If it goes the no direction, we'll come back to this and we'll actually pick a few from this list and we'll pick a handful from this list to actually have a concrete $1 million to begin planning 26, 27 for cut in 27, 28.
So we wouldn't actually state the cuts until the summer of 2026 or
Yes,
November of 2026?
that's right. Great, good transition. So here are the next steps. We need to submit this framework to MCUE. So we're basically gonna say, if you all vote to approve this, we're gonna cut $1 million from these 2 buckets. That's kind of the vagueness that we'll go to them with. We'll continue conversations about the parcel tax renewal and increase. I wanna be transparent that it's a renewal and an increase. If you all vote on it in later this year. The board will discuss the partial tax measure on these 2 dates, on January 27th and February 11th. Anyone listening in here who's interested in giving feedback, shoot me an email, send the board an email, attend those 2 meetings. We want to hear your voice. That goes for staff, community members, parents. Please come talk to us. We're eager to hear your voice. We'll receive the results potentially in June or November, depending on when you all vote to go out. If the parcel tax fails in either one of those, we will start identifying specific cuts. So that could be this summer, or it could be in the fall. And then we'll start planning for implementing the cuts in 26, 27, and we'll actually implement the cuts in 27, 28. So if I go back here, we could make some of these cuts next year. Most of these cuts need a year of planning in order to implement. The eliminating 0 period would take a full year to get community input, to design a new master schedule. The bell schedule would change at White Hill. Like, there's a lot to change there. And then obviously if we were gonna close a school, there'd be massive community engagement around that, about identifying which school and what the timeline is and what the consequences are. So that's the timeline. So happy to take any other questions or take any direction from the board on investigating any of these or taking anything off the list or, anything else you want if we have to come back to you in June. Shelley?
So I was taking to heart what you were saying about this is what we did before, is we said this is the plan, didn't pass, plan went into place.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also reflecting on that, how do we light the fire that apparently are no, really, kind of yes, we have urgency, but people don't react until their party is taken away on the avenue, kind of thing. I mean, this plan has us making cuts later, as opposed to, I'm just throwing this out, this is just a thought, before the parcel tax, and saying, no, really, we're not messing around here. And we're so not messing around here that we are preemptively going to start making some of these painful, awful, we don't want to do it cuts. Because everybody needs to understand that this is not a we'll stitch it together with gum and shoestring like we always have. This is real. And so we're gonna actually show it, not tell it, and we're gonna make cuts before the parcel tax. So people can come and scream and yell at us for making hard decisions, which is why we're sitting in these chairs, is to make hard decisions. But we're doing it by showing, not telling the community, and sharing that pain ahead of time and say, you want to have this back, we have to have the money to be able to bring it back. And if we get the money, if it passes, great. I don't know if this is a good idea, but I'm just trying to think through how can everybody feel it, because I know we feel it sitting up in these seats, and we feel the weight and the importance of it because we're sitting here because we've chosen to care for everybody's children. But everybody needs to care for everybody's children, not just the people sitting up here and the staff and the teachers and the administrators. And somehow we need to create that feeling in people's guts, like I know we have up here. We're not messing around. So if people haven't felt it before, I'm just throwing out there that people have to feel it.
I thought it was interesting. We had 2 budget advisory committee meetings this year. One was in October, and the culture of the team has actually gotten pretty good, where people know each other, they connect personally, we can kind of wrestle with intellectual ideas and disagree and kind of have a good conversation. And in October, there were actually points in time in the committee where we were kind of like, dare I say it, like laughing and having fun. It was actually a really great meeting. I think the team is fantastic. And when we talked about this earlier this week, there was no laughter. The difference was in October, it was really an intellectual idea. We were brainstorming, kind of thinking about all the options. And earlier this week, we were actually like, you're putting a sticker on something you think can get cut. And the feeling in the room was still collaborative and connected, but it was really heavy to actually consider the pros and cons of closing a school or eliminating electives or changing working conditions for teachers. It was heavy.
I brought this up to you just sidebarring, but I've been able to see the trajectory living here long enough. I've seen young kids get prepared for Whitehill by the K through 5. And then from Whitehill, I've seen them get prepared to go into TAM. And I've actually seen those kids, very kids, go on to UC, Berkeley, Davis, great schools. And the preparation that they've had to be able to go from step to step has been very clear. And we've been very clear about prepping them for TAM. For example, from middle school. As you look at these cuts, and then you're looking at TAM, cutting a bunch of things as well, I'm just trying to keep that continuity and connection for the ultimate end success that we want for our kids, starting on the first day of TK. You know, what is their trajectory going to look like? Is it going to reach a glass ceiling because we've had to cut things that cannot protect them to accommodate them into the next phase of schooling? And so I'm just wondering, are we overlaying what's happening everywhere? Because we're not the only ones dealing with this, right? TAM is going through a lot of cuts.
Yeah, I think
so.
All districts around, I mean, I read the CSBA Daily Digest almost every day.
Yeah.
And there's articles from around the state. Every school district, almost every school district is facing some sort of cuts this year because of the sunsetting of the rolling 3-year average and the COVID funds. A lot of people are cutting counseling services, intervention services. A lot of people are cutting admin. Sac City, I read an article, they're cutting 70 admin. We barely have 70 teachers in this district. So some of these bigger districts like TAM have more room to cut. But if you look at the board, the conversation they're having, they're closing a school. They're taking one of their alternative schools, closing it, and merging with another. So it's a real conversation in most districts. I would say that, if you cut an intervention program, fewer kids are going to be prepared for middle school and high school.
Right.
If you cut your electives, depending on what electives you cut, you could see a kid not prepared for world language in high school,
Right.
or potentially a CTE course in high school,
Which affects them.
or
if they
band, or orchestra, or name the elective that gets cut.
Right.
And then you have kids coming from other districts that did get that potentially, that have a leg up. So this is why this was a heavy meeting on the 11th. It's because every one of these actually impacts kids or teachers.
And I hope every single person in that room went out and spoke to all of their neighbors and conveyed that as well. I mean, we're not messing, we just have to recommend this, and it is going to happen if we can't,
Well, I think that that's my biggest worry, is that the people that are internal are nervous and quiet. And the people that are kind of like, Measure E was a perfect example. The anti-Measure E people had endurance. They were loud. They went to every meeting, and anytime there was public comment, you best be sure they were making public comment. And you saw some of it here tonight. The advocates tend to listen and are pretty quiet. So we need people to start, I talked about that, kind of tongue-in-cheek said this at the Budget Advisory Committee. It has to be kind of like a MLM. Like, I go text 15 people, I ask those 15 people to text 15 people, and they text 15 people. Like, we have to be loud, persistence, have endurance, and share this story. Like, this is these 4 items tonight, every single one of them is like, we need to be shouting this from, I've got a press release that's gonna go out at 10 o'clock to this. I've got a parent square that's gonna go out at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to every person in the community. I need people to read those. I need people to forward them to other people in the community so people know the story.
and
I need you to talk to people about it.
And I'm also gonna say, when you have a board agenda item that says, we are discussing closing a school, this room will be packed.
Yep.
We are discussing cutting art and music, this room will be packed. And unfortunately, I don't mean to be too cynical, until and unless you do that, people show up at the 11th hour. People show up at the 11th and a half hour. It's what I've seen in this community. I don't know if it's all communities, but it's what I've seen in this community is people will not show up when we're having these discussions. They're gonna show up, not those of you who are here, I appreciate that you're here, but it's not a packed house. You guys keep coming here and you understand this and you've been here, but it's not a packed house, and it will be when we have an agenda item. And then they will say, you haven't told us all the information. I mean, so, sorry.
No. So what I'm kind of hearing from Shelley is like, I think she would like us to explore maybe looking at doing these sooner. Is kind of what it sounds like a possibility of looking at just discussing it sooner.
Or picking one thing
Like
that we.
Okay, so that's what I'm hearing.
I'd like to
as
explore
a
that again.
direction.
This is just something that I'm like, how can other people besides the handful of you that are sitting here we really appreciate you being here and get people to show up, even if it's somehow, and pay attention.
Alright.
I know.
So are you guys done with questions? Get to questions, okay.
Oh, right, questions,
Do you have public comment? Do you have any public comment?
I got my soapbox out too early.
Sorry, it's okay.
Switch into discussion, I'm like, when do I get to say?
No.
I'm sorry.
Just a second.
Alright, so I'm Twig, Manor Parent. I've been in every single of that budget advisory committee since before Tyler was our superintendent. I was very, very involved in Measure E, some of you know, and talked to, and probably knocked most doors on that campaign. And from that, so I have perspectives on both of those things. And what I am worried about is that we don't actually have a plan, right? So say I am involved in this next Measure Y, whatever it's gonna be called,
if we don't actually have exact plan, and we just have this giant list that we don't say this is what's happening, then what I'm gonna tell my neighbor? Are we not gonna have ticket, or are we gonna close school? Like, what? We don't have a specific, this is what's happening. If you don't vote yes. And I will have to go and do this talking way before the June. And so then it's kind of like last time the message was muddled. Sure, support the teachers. Yes, of course we support the teachers, right? But we need much more solid, this is what's happening. And if we are not doing this till June, that's then where I'm going to tell the people I'm knocking on the doors. Am I going to tell them that we may not have music? And then, or am I going to tell them we're going to close the school? Those are very different things for the community. And so I feel like we as a district need to have an actual plan before we go talk to people about voting. And so I'm concerned that it sounds like we might not have that plan, because we really need it. I need to be able to tell people, this is what's happening. If you are not, I need you to go fill that ballot. And I understand that it's scary to say we're gonna close school. I totally get it. There's a lot going on in the same way how there's a lot going on into any of those things. None of them, and as I've been in all those meetings, I know that none of them are easy, but we need to be solid as like, this is our messaging, because we can't have another campaign with somewhat muted, muddled message. We need A, B, C. Those are the things we are doing if we don't get this passed. And I don't feel like we have it. And I'll have to be starting knocking the doors comes, March, April. So I think we gotta think of what does it mean in terms of the messaging. And even now, we're encouraging people to go talk to your neighbors. We need to have a solid, not muddled, not vague message that we're gonna go and tell people. And I feel like we're not ready, or I don't see it ready. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
So, the board had some questions, talked about stuff that we did talk about in detail in these meetings discussing these cuts. The thing I want to say off the top is that, I was at a table where I was the only parent. It was all other staff members in the most recent time. And at least our table reflected that it was a complete non-starter, cutting intervention and counseling services. Just seemed that nobody wanted even to discuss that. Every other option was on the table ahead of that. In terms of cutting schools, one of the reasons why I personally think cutting schools is the best option is it affects every student equally, as opposed to taking out the budget just affecting the White Hill students, and then maybe we pass a parcel tax and they get their programs. We don't want an unfortunate 2 years of students who suffer on these programs because of these cuts. And when you're cutting a school, I think, it sounds scary and it sounds like a big deal because it is. But in terms of impact on students, it's class sizes and physical location for students who may have to be portable for families. It's commutes. But hopefully their education is otherwise the same. And, it's an enrollment issue. One of the, Chris mentioned a little bit, the numbers we're seeing is just the decrease in staff, because right now, looking at the enrollment numbers from October, which was the most recent, in each grade level, we have essentially an extra classroom of students in terms of not filling up your 24 students for K through 3 and 28 for 4th and 5th grade. And that's real savings that you get with closing a school. And I forget if it was after June, or if if a parcel tax doesn't pass in June, or if it was a November issue. But I think Tyler, you mentioned that if we don't hit June, or maybe if we don't hit November and are scrambling last minute, no matter what, school closing is the only option. So you don't want to delay the serious option, and again, take away programs from students. Because I agree that the community who is voting on these taxes really should be the ones that feel it. Unfortunately, I think implementing these programs is just making the kids feel it. Implementing these costs. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay. Bring it back to the desk for discussion. Anything additional?
It makes me think, should we start looking at the 27-28 $0 from the parcel tax? Like cutting $1 million here, should we be messaging, if this doesn't pass, we're losing $5 million from the budget. So then that is a bigger conversation. Maybe that does light more of a fire under people. It's all messaging, right? And I'm not a messaging person.
So I just want to be clear that this has been on my roadshow this year. Right there at the bottom. It's a public comment.
Right.
If it doesn't happen in November, we will have to cut the $1 million and not give raises and close schools.
Right.
And probably be in state takeover within 6 months to 12 months of that. I put this in parent square messages. I've talked to the PTA over at Archie about this. I've shopped this around with our teachers. Every one of our teachers has seen this. Our administrators have seen this. This is in my budget roadshow that's on YouTube that a couple hundred people have seen. Like this is part of the messaging, and it's been part of the messaging. So I tend to agree that we don't have a hyper specific plan, but we have a specific enough plan, and there's specific enough talking points to say lowest funding in the county, bottom 4% of the state, cutting $1 million, which could include things such as these. And it might not be the fear factor, but I actually don't tend to lead with like the stick. I'd rather lead with the carrot and see where things go. So, I mean, Shelley, to your point earlier, you could make one of these cuts, scare people into voting, and then reestablish the program, but you risk losing staff. The program might not be able to be implemented, and that's something we talked about last year, is what's something easy to unplug and replug back in. Closing a school, you unplug that, opening a school back up is, not gonna happen anytime soon.
Tyler, could you put it to the first slide that shows all of the cuts, potential cuts?
But we could.
Not slide one, it's where it has
The $100,000.
We could vote to be specific on a thing that's going to be implemented. Obviously, closing a school doesn't happen the day after we take that vote. So we could actually make a very tangible, very specific decision. It says we are going to do X. We're going to cut a school. We're going to do half-day TK, whatever it is, that the very clear decision. And maybe we don't have to do a whole million of them, but you're right, we have had talking points. I think we do have a relatively specific plan. What we haven't had is action.
But that says close 2 schools.
One of them does, yeah.
One is close one school, one is close two. If I add up every item on just this page, with the exception of not saying close two, just add the closed one, you're not even to $4 million. And then if you go one more page, these are all, if you just use the smaller, these are all small and it's less than $250,000. You're nowhere near the $5 million that you're going to lose in revenue.
That's for the November.
You're saying if we did every single one of these things on this list, we still don't even come close to being the $5 million.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So it's cut all of this, close 2 schools, and state receivership.
Right.
Like that's there's no clearer message than that. And I think this is the thing that frustrates me from time to time. I've been saying the same thing for 18 months.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over and over and over again. And people are like, well, I need talking points. Repeat what I said. They're right here,
Again,
right there.
people can hear it, they're not feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're hearing it. We've said it lots of times in different ways. You're an excellent communicator. It has nothing, don't take it personally. But people are not feeling it.
I'm
And
talking
we've
to
done,
the same 5 people
and
every
we've done a great job of helping them not feel it. We've done an amazing job at being efficient and making $700,000 worth of cuts that people aren't even really feeling because we've been able to squeeze it out and parcel it out and reconfigure it and that kind of stuff, which is awesome because we haven't impacted kids, but it also kind of creates people aren't feeling it.
Is there anything not on this list that you, Tyler or Chris, would ask us to consider?
We had talked about maybe languages at Whitehill as something.
That would be part of the eliminating 0 period. Like there would still, you'd need a year to discuss which programs would be. We came up, this started at cabinet. So the 4 of us had a long discussion about what we could cut. We took it to principals, got more input from principals. And then we took it to the budget advisory committee and they added even more things on there that we hadn't thought of or that we had talked about last year and didn't get back on this list. So this is a pretty comprehensive list. If we cut every one of these things, essentially we're doing exactly what the state funds us for. Bare minimum schools. What a bare minimum school is a principal, an admin assistant in the front, a custodian, and teachers.
And
nothing
packed
else.
classrooms.
Nothing else.
One thing I'd recommend for those listening and us is to take a slide, maybe the first slide or one of the slides that goes to cutting the million, and ask ChatGPT to make 3 sentences to communicate the impact of what that says. And there it is. That's what you tell people. Okay? It's a great thing to do. And it will spit out the sentences you need to say if it's too much verbiage. But we need all of this information to get the point across.
But the hypothetical is not, it's not clear to, like, people are not feeling it. It's, I don't know, it's like, I don't see anything on this list we could close tomorrow. Like, it all takes planning.
I think there's some things on this part of the list that we could cut next school year.
Yeah,
Definitely.
easily.
On that one.
But we're talking like
It's
$100,000, $200,000.
$125,000.
Yeah, we might be able to cut one of these things, maybe, but
But we're doing death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
And over time we become the frog in the pot, you know? And then we don't realize how hot it is. I think you have to just slit the throat.
And I also think that like part of the problem isn't that we don't have the information. I've been giving the presentations, people have the information, they're in the board packets, like I've offered to get coffee with anyone who wants it, the information's there. It's the motivation. Yeah, I don't really want to knock doors, I feel uncomfortable.
Put salt in their coffee
And
when
you
you
know what?
when you talk to them and say that's what it feels like.
But the people but you're right, the endurance of those that will come and say, no, die on the cross, no. We gotta get the same passion. I feel like
100%. The no person texts their big group chat that lives in their neighborhood.
Yep.
They go to the HOA meeting.
Yep.
They go to the board meeting. They go to the town of San Anselmo. They go to the town of Fairfax. They post on Nextdoor. They are relentless.
Yeah.
We need 100 of those people on our side to be relentless.
Yeah.
And I think we've had a nice core group that was in the Measure E campaign last year. But aside from that core group, it was let's hope they vote for it.
Small group of people working really, really hard as opposed to
And it's easier to motivate people on a no than it is to motivate people on a yes. So it's going to take more endurance and more excitement and more consistency.
So the no can come from we don't want this to happen to our schools. The no can be against us
TK transition half day, and which it will be. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying,
that's what's
is we
gonna
need people yelling
get the
at us
torches
because we're
here.
making difficult decisions that we clearly have to make.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, ironically, we're asking to create a circumstance where people are gonna come and be mad at us because we're having to make things that are gonna impact their family.
And like, I was going back and forth with the editor of the IJ about a little persnickety thing that I had. And he was begging me to write an opinion article in the IJ. Anyone here can write an opinion article to the IJ. You can take my parents' message from tomorrow and revise it, write your own spin on it. And like, I think that's the like creativity in action.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the wringing our hands in the parking lot after this meeting. It's the go do something. Michelle Obama said it in her speech not too long ago. Do something. You've got to do something.
And not just do
that's
it
what this
once.
is about. Yeah.
Can I ask a couple of the other small questions? On the increased class size number, which I think is on the other page, that's from what to what? What did you estimate the, where is it?
It's essentially being more judicious around the number of combo classes we have.
Well, I know, but I'm saying if we increased class sizes without combo like we went from 17 students to 30 students per class and we ate the penalty and like is that, I'm just saying for exploration on where additional funding, that's one question that I have is, I mean, we've seen in the past class sizes of, I am so not advocating for this, I can't even believe it's coming out of my mouth, but we've seen class sizes at 26, 27, 28. They hit 30 at one point. Awful, terrible. But to your point, I think, was, or somebody's of like, what's gonna be kind of universally impactful for everybody, that's a thing that everybody feels. If all classes are larger, then it's something that impacts literally everybody. So that might be something to look at, is what that's calculated on and whether it can.
And what that would actually look like, just for anyone listening in or in the room, is more combination classes, splitting siblings that might go to two different schools. So right now, we usually try to make the decision if Daniel's older daughter is at Brookside, younger daughter's gonna be Brookside, we just try to keep them together. We could overflow to another school and then Daniel's gotta do 2 drop-offs.
The word overflow sends shivers down people's spines.
So it's combos, it's overflows, it's larger class sizes, it's all of it. And it to have a concrete plan would have to have our enrollment numbers for this year and kind of work some things through, but it could be a savings even more than that if we get super, super tight with it.
That was just one thing that I was thinking of, if we're gonna come back in, take action and make a decision where we're gonna say, we're gonna pick 2 things. And we're gonna make a decision on the 27th and we put it as an agenda item and figure out how to do that, that's just a thought. The other one is, would cutting a school, on the class size issue, would cutting a school by default increase class sizes because we would need to fit more students in fewer space, so it's kind of like a
and more
double.
kids and portables too.
And kids in portables, but it's also increasing class sizes because you're fitting.
But also cutting a school opens us up for potential
other use.
competitors
Yep.
stepping into our campuses and using our facilities.
Yep, there's pros and cons to all, yes, there is. There's pros and cons to all of it, and if people knew that, perhaps they would feel it. Also, I mean, it's none of these I wanna make a decision on, clearly, but.
So, any more direction for Tyler?
I have,
Sorry,
yeah.
thank you.
What would be the process of moving yes funds to general? Like, how would that, I'm just curious, I have no idea.
Yeah.
They would have to
Who
get
would have to-
classified as a nonprofit first, cause they've got a specific mission.
Their charter is specifically arts and music, so it'd take a lot of work on their end. And then essentially what they would do is, instead of donating $850,000 for art and music, would just eliminate art and music programs and use that $850,000 for intervention support or core academics or, electives at the middle school. It would just basically offset our general fund.
Right, but I mean, it would take a year, a cycle, because everybody that's donated.
Most of these big ones are big enough
Yeah.
that it takes a year to plan.
Yeah.
To Shelley's point, there's a few of these things. The increase class sizes and do more combos. We, especially in the last 2 years, we have been student and family first in a lot of those decisions. We could have reversed 5 or 6 decisions last year that would have saved us some money, but we would have overflowed a kid to another school or had another combo or overflowed a class from 24 kids to 26 kids.
Which is awesome. And we're not kidding that we're here where we are and we can't keep doing that because we don't have anywhere else to go.
Yep.
We can't.
Yep.
And thank you for doing that. But don't do it again.
So any more directions? So it sounds like you guys wanna look at cuts sooner than after.
And let me just, I'm clarifying by action, I mean action by taking a decision, not necessarily implementing a cut sooner.
Sure.
Because I know this was for the 27-28 school
I think
year.
that's the big feedback I'm hearing
We could
is that
still have it be for the 27-28 school year, it's just we make a binding decision
yeah.
on what those cuts, not a plan or a framework or something like that. But like, no, we're gonna, in the 27-28, we're already making this decision, unless something changes, but
And this is a concrete plan.
yes.
I don't wanna, like, this is not
Yeah.
gray, this is crystal clear. It's how much, and again, if we go back to the November 2026 part of this, it's crystal clear and concrete. It's all of that.
Right.
So the difference is, for June 2026, it's some of that.
And this is on top of freezing salaries, and I mean, this is in addition to, which again, like
Lowest
the
salaries
top
in the
of
county
both of these is
and losing
salaries are
grant.
held flat, there's none of that, plus we do all this.
So I think the direction I'm hearing from the board is to come back with these 2 buckets, and we'll get a even more specific plan for what we're gonna cut in the 27-28 school year and what we would cut in the 28-29 out year if we didn't have more local funding. And I think the thing we've gotta be careful about is especially as staff, we can't go around saying, if this doesn't pass, this happens. The committee can go do that, but staff can't use staff time to do that. But this is our plan, and our primary plan is the parcel tax. So if that doesn't pass, these are the things that may happen, and that's legally what we can say at this point.
Okay, so are we approving something or are
No.
we taking it away?
Yes, you're
Yeah.
approving a framework to cut $1 million. We need to submit that to the
So
county.
I'm gonna recommend that the board, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Rachel,
No,
why
go
don't
ahead.
you-
No.
I'm gonna recommend that the board accept the budget cut plan to be implemented in the 2027-28 school year to be submitted to MCOE.
Do I have a second?
Second. You can go.
Alright,
You
Chris.
do it, you do it.
Okay, aye.
Anna.
Aye.
Shelley.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. Alright.
And we'll bring
Thank
this
you.
back probably in the early spring, late winter to have a more specific conversation where you all can kind of pick. And Chris and I may go back to the budget advisory committee because I think the voting that we had was a little skewed in one direction, and one more conversation around that could be helpful for recommendation for you all.
Okay.
I suggest closer to early spring, so then it has impact for like the next possible 2 cycles of elections.
Early spring, you said?
Yeah, cause if you wait until the fall, then we've missed
Yeah.
an opportunity depending on when we
Yeah.
decide to do this.
Yep. Okay.
Our next item is present for public review, notice resolution 032526 and the annual accounting of the 2024-25 developer fees in Fund 25, Government Code Section 66001D and 66006B. And, but that's great.
So this is one of those perfunctory things that I have to bring to you this board meeting, and then I'll bring it back to you again at the next board meeting in January. So tonight is just hearing it. And it's letting you know how much money we received in our developer fees fund, which is Fund 25. And so last year we received a total of $53,034 in revenues. That was both in developer fees and interest income. Developer fees are anytime somebody pulls a permit to construct either a home or a business, or to add on in excess of 500 square feet, they have to pay a fee, a school fee, to help offset the cost of the impact upon a growing school campus. And so we received those revenues, and then we had expenses of $21,393. That was for modular building at Manor, as well as our demographic study that we did last year. And so in total, we have an ending fund balance of $251,536. And so at the next board meeting, you will be just approving a resolution that says this is how much we received and how much we spent in this particular fund.
Good. Do you have any questions for Chris up here? All right. Do you have any public comment on this item? No. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion.
Nothing.
Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
There's no motion.
There's no motion.
Oh, no motion? Oh, that's right, okay. Oh, sorry, it's late. Next item is F, consent actions. Unless somebody would like to pull one of these out.
Who's Chris Morgan? Who's donating the instruments? Who is that?
Oh, it's a parent in the
Parent?
in the community.
Just curious. That was all I had.
Thank you for that. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, if not, any public comment on consent actions? No, public comment? Okay. I'll entertain a motion on consent.
I'll make a motion to approve all consent items.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Daniel?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
And Anna?
Aye.
And Rachel, aye. Alright, so we can move consent, and the next item, sorry, this is a weird new agenda. G, board business, I didn't mess that up, did I? Okay. So I've got committee updates, reports from, and announcements by trustees.
So we just talked about the Budget Advisory Committee, that's been ongoing. Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee has been really insightful, trying to plan a larger event at Whitehill later on in the spring. And the 6th grade girls basketball team at Whitehill is going to dominate this year.
Yeah, just on to piggyback on the Parent Governing Equity Task Force, we had a very productive meeting. We had 3 committees that 2 merged into one, the outreach and communications, and we've got some interesting ideas coming out of that, but a special shout out to Julia and her team for getting the You Belong posters that are up at all of the campuses. So when you see them, they're quite wonderful in English and Spanish with the mascots and a great message to people coming on campus. We do have some ideas, some grand coming out of some of these committees. We'll see where they'll go. But a lot of it is around really trying to get that message of belonging. So the Yes has a video that you go to at open house, and what does that look like? And even having some training too for people coming onto the committee so they don't have to start at ground zero away from people understanding where they are. I went to the Whitehill Holiday Concert last night, a lot of fun. The band, symphonic band and a jazz band, and the combined concert band performed. It was a lot of fun. The high school music teacher from Archie was there, who also spoke up. And back to that synergy of connecting the middle school experience to high school. This guy has turned music into an epic event at Archie, and his excitement about welcoming the Whitehill kids into the music program was really wonderful to see and hear. So that was a great thing to experience. Whitehill also performed at the Holiday on the Street Festival in San Anselmo, and the tree lighting festival, and it was really great. There were just people that were downtown that were like, they were all like, "Who is this? Who are these kids? Where are they from?" And I was like, Ross Valley School District, Whitehill. So those are some great things, and I think that's it on my side. Yeah.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Oh, I was just gonna say the California School Board Association conference was great to attend. It was the three of us that went in, Tyler, and I think two themes. One was closing achievement gaps, closing opportunity gaps was a big one. They went through, this is, I think, the 10th anniversary of LCFF and LCAPS. And so there was some conversation around how the how important it is, and strides have been made, but there are still definitely gaps in achievement and opportunity for students in different demographic groups. And with LCFF, there was an understanding that the current class of legislators who are there were not in those, there's barely any of them left who were in the seats when LCFF was the new thing, came into being, which was an equity issue of creating more educational equity with the way that funding happened. And while equity has been created, there are still gaps. So that was kind of a theme of a bunch of different sessions that I was in, was making sure that the legislators who are sitting in the seats now really understand why LCFF calculator was put into place. Because the previous era was all of these categorical programs that would come and go, and districts felt like they were getting whiplash from like, we have this program for 3 years and then it's gone because then the pet project from another legislator comes in for 3 years. And it was this crazy accounting scramble of all of this categorical funding, and we're starting to see it creep back in. And a lot of it is because legislators are in there now that didn't understand the importance and the fight and the struggle and the conversations when LCFF was put in place. So it seems like this is a particular moment in time to this whole idea of the enrollment, not ADA, not only would be a good thing, but it would also reinvigorate the why do we have LCFF in the first place conversation. So I think the timing is right for that. And it was just a great conference.
Yeah, I agree. It was great. It was inspiring to be around so many school board members. I mean, I feel like, being here, it's just us. But that was, the energy, and to see that many people that are there just giving their time. It's not their primary job, source of income. Like that was inspiring for me. And the sessions, I mean, it's just thinking about future more and like that to maintain a healthy district, because we have urgent problems right now, revenue. But, part of our job too is to really, to think ahead. So that was good. I attended some policy, like, I did a 101 like a new trustee track. So it was like you suggested, and they were, policy toolkit and all these different things. I would say the best thing that I got out of it, and Rachel, they agree. Rachel and I met with, there's a position called, Pacer, thank you. I'm like, what is it called? A Pacer, so they're regional, and so it's a person who is a liaison between CSBA and us. So any questions that we have, or if we want to connect with legislators, or if there's just they can connect us, they can answer questions, so we can get support from CSBA. So we have, her name's Carrie Castro, and Rachel and I had lunch with her. And she's definitely a resource that we have, so we can contact her. And so that was nice to connect with her. And definitely we are not alone in our revenue problems. Like that is certainly everybody's feeling that. Also, it was interesting. So I know that our district is small, but I learned officially what that means. I don't know if all of you know this. Any district, and I'm new here, so I'm like, any district under 2,500 students, I did not know that. And so we are certainly in that category. And it affects all sorts of things, including there's, funding with like Prop 98, all these things I didn't know. So that was great for me to get some of that background education. Some perspective. There were definitely some things there that didn't apply to us because of the size of our district.
And the lower undocumented number.
Unduplicated.
Unduplicated, so sorry, I'm tired, unduplicated, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was a great experience overall. Let's see what else. Yes, has been fundraising. Like, I mean, they've been doing so much. So like all the merch, and they had the turkey trot, and they did. I mean, and then they just had Giving Tuesday. They're like meeting all of their goals, everything and more. Like it's great. Yeah, their team is very on top of it, motivated. They're bored. So that's been nice to see how they operate. The winter market was very fun with the mascots last weekend. Have you guys seen the pictures?
Mhm.
Did you guys all?
Yes, correct.
Oh yeah, we sent them. So that was fun. Yeah, tons of kids who wanted to be the mascots.
But did we?
It was fun. Oh, we had some ideas
We got
for next year.
You know, the Ross Valley. Get your picture of
Yeah.
the Ross Valley school mascot, just like a little thing. Or if we're doing music on the avenue, Ross Valley schools.
Can we save this to
Oh, good idea.
Yeah, save it to because I need to have something to write.
But it was
down.
inspiring. You're like, ooh, next time. Okay.
And all the mascots had a great time. Little kids seeing them. It's like they're at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. It's like a really scary wildcat.
Oh.
Charlie was like, wait, why am I not the bear? And I said, because we have plans.
That is something maybe we talked to some PTAs about.
Seeing the little kids light up, it's really cool.
The mascot. The state of the mascots.
That's great.
All right. That's it for me.
Alright, so I have a whole lot since November, our November meeting. I went to the Wade Thomas Harvest Mingle, which was always fun to go to those just to see what they were doing. So that was really interesting. There's always like interesting food, and there's like pop-ups with things you can learn about. I served as a panelist for the California Association of Student Councils, an organization I had not heard of. Before I was contacted to serve on this panel, but what they do is their mission is to have like leadership opportunities for elementary, middle school, and high school students. And what they do is they teach them how to, they teach them about ethics and collaborative decision making, and then they teach them basically, and they bring them forward to this panel with proposals for how to improve education somehow. And so they've done all sorts of things in the past, like they helped bring about like menstrual products in bathrooms for people. They reduced PE in 11th and 12th grade because students need academics and not the PE. So they've done advocacy for all sorts of things, and they've been in existence since 1947. It was founded by the CDE. So it was really fascinating to sit there, and I had high school students who were presenting to us. There was one who presented about having wellness rooms in their schools, and that should be a requirement, and how to get that done. One was about having required food donation drives, and then the other one was so funny. The other panelists, there was a college and Marin trustee there, and then we had like a mayor and like a couple other people there who were on the panel with me. But the last student who spoke was he wanted to increase school funding, and they're like, "I will let you get this, Rachel." So it was really fascinating just to hear, like, he was in his school in Santa Rosa that was impacted by cuts, and he's like, "We're students, we're being affected by these cuts. We should have been consulted. Why weren't we notified and like able to participate when these are directly affecting us? Like, we don't have a workshop class. That's a really important class." So it was just really fascinating to hear the perspective and how they were talking about how he was like addressing it. And so it was really interesting. Aside from that, I've been meeting with community members who have been interested in a parcel tax and the campaign, and kind of just like reaching out for information. I attended the League of Women Voters Marin and Library and Education meeting, which was interesting. They're working on an article about education and school funding. That should be coming out soon. The CSBA conference was the first time I've ever been in person, and it was really interesting. I managed to attend like every single possible like workshop I could in the time we were given for all of them, and all general sessions. But what I found was that there's maybe one or two of the sessions were incredibly valuable, but the networking I was able to do was phenomenal. I was put in touch with a couple of the superintendent candidates for this coming election. I've already talked to one of them to find out like his stance on all sorts of things. Like, so the fact that I was able to do that, I spoke with somebody from the peninsula who is a school board member, and they've got a successful workforce housing project, and they're working on doing another one. So there's all these people who I've been reading about and like following, and then I was like able to meet them and just happen to sit down and just chat them up and be like, hey, where is your district? And asking all these questions. So I met a lot of people, and it was really helpful just to hear like what they're struggling with. It's very similar in most cases, but it was just a good perspective. A couple of the things that I went to that were really interesting was Advocacy 101, which is, I've already been doing it, but it was very concise in like how to effectively reach your assembly members and your, you know, all the people who are ones pulling all these levers and writing these assembly bills that we need for these, like, to change the LCFF and things like that. And it was like a blueprint for how to reach out to them and just like tips and things. And I thought that was extremely helpful. And the other one that was really helpful was just how to efficiently govern in the age of like political and social division. And so I thought that was just really helpful just to hear what other schools have gone through, how they've dealt with it, like successful ideas and things that just generally tend to make it easier to communicate with constituents and make sure that people understand so you're not necessarily dealing with culture wars. And then aside from the conference, Anna and I did meet with our North Coast Region PACER, which is Public Affairs and Community Engagement Rep. So I had to like look it up. I've already reached out to her since we met with her, and she's going to help get me in touch with a couple assembly members that I wanted to speak to who are working on LCFF adjustments. And so I've already met with, you know, other local people here, but these are people who are statewide that are working in Sacramento. So they're people that I haven't had access to locally. And then the Fairfax Winter Market, thank you for having people in those mascot costumes. That was awesome. And Pete Santucci was there. Anu Twig was there supporting him. They had a really sweet sing-along that they did in public. It was very sweet. I loved it. And then I was at the Hidden Valley Sing-Along yesterday, which is like a big tradition there. And I think it's at all the schools, but it was just, I have memories there because my kids went through there. And then the White Hill Middle School Band concert last night, I was there as well. And I actually have Mario Aparicio, I have his recording of him giving the welcome speech to the kids at White Hill and inviting them to come and the 8th grade families to come and visit the music room when it's like parent 8th grade night and things like that. So he said he wouldn't mind if I posted that, which I will be thrilled. But he was very welcoming, he's very encouraging of all the young musicians, so it was great. All right. With that,
I have one. I forgot.
Go ahead.
I also attended the JLAC, the Joint
Oh,
Legislative
yeah.
Advocacy Committee. Speaking of advocacy, which is what I was reminded of. A lot of it was a follow-up or a recap, or just talking about a lot of the messaging that came out of the California School Board Association conference, because it was right after that, and the budget stuff. The governor is coming out with governor's budget in, help me out here, January.
Middle of January.
Middle of January, so the governor's proposed budget will come out in the middle of January. So there was bills that were not quite passed but scrambling, his budget will come out, trailer bill, there was a conversation around trailer bills. The other thing that I was gonna say was the next opportunity for meeting people, speaking of which, and networking is in February, is the Marin County School Board Association's trip to Sacramento, which we are all invited to go on if you want to go on. We should forward that RSVP information to all the school board members if you want to go. Usually our representatives, so David Connolly and Mike McGuire, one or the other or both, or their staffers are still there. And I remember one of the messages from that was staffers are totally get in front of staffers. So even if you aren't in front of the legislator person themselves, their staffer is really important. There's a lot of great information that happened at that Sacramento Day, and perhaps we can bring some of this messaging, especially the enrollment shift to them. They listen. The other thing that we heard was that getting letters from parents is super, they read them. They read those letters. Like, that was one of the questions, I think, in this advocacy. It's like, does it really make a difference if parents and people send letters? And they're like, yes, it really does. They do read them. They do pay attention to them. And so I think the more we can encourage, I don't know if it's on our website or where it is, but the more we can encourage parents to say, your voice actually really does matter in Sacramento, which will actually really matter to us. So take those emails that you send to us and forward them to them too, or something like that, I think would be really helpful to do. So,
That's good to know. That's good to know.
so that's coming up in February, and I do plan on going, so it's always great. And they did open it up, I don't know quite how it's gonna work, I don't wanna open a can of worms to 8th graders, if there's an 8th grader or so who is a really strong leadership type of person. They've had youth ambassadors come every year to Sacramento. They've always been high school, but I guess there was a couple of junior highs that said that, hey, maybe we might have some 8th graders. There's a little bit different supervisory requirements, so that was TBD. But
do you know what date in February it is off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say like mid.
Okay, I'll look it up.
February. I'm thinking in the teens.
Okay.
Last year was Valentine's Day, quite romantic.
Yeah.
Quite romantic. It was lovely. Yes.
Oh, who celebrates
fall in love with your
Valentine's Day?
legislator all over again. But we'll get it and send it out to everybody.
All right. So with that, we have approval of regular meeting minutes for November 17th, 2025. And it looks like, actually, I don't think you were present for that one.
Sorry.
It was the last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is that November 12th? This says November 12th on the meeting
November
minutes, November
17th.
17th here.
Was that the one that I missed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which date was it? The 17th or the 23rd? Which date it was for that meeting?
Oh, it was probably the 12th.
It's the 12th.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure I'm not seeing something in here. Okay. Can we approve it if it's got the wrong date? It should be fine. Right?
Yeah, I think you can approve it pending
Okay.
that change.
I mean, the board minutes are correct.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Okay. It's wrong in the description, but it's correct in the actual minutes. All right. Anybody have any changes to this? No.
No.
You have any public comment on it? No. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the board minutes from November 12th, 2025.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Anna.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Shelley.
Abstain.
Chris.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. And our next item is annual Board of Trustees organizational meeting to elect board president, clerk, and a representative to serve on the Marin County School Boards Association, MCSBA, for the term December 2025 through December 2026.
Great. Well, this is an opportunity for us to talk about nominating 3 of you to either continue or step into 3 specific positions. We've got the board president, the board clerk, and the MCSBA rep. So 3 really important positions. I believe right now the board president is Rachel Litwack, clerk is Chris Landels-Cobb, and Daniel, are you the?
I think I'm the MCSBA rep this year.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I don't think we have like a formal process for this. Is someone can step forward or someone can nominate somebody. You guys can have a discussion about who you want in each of those 3 positions.
I think last time everybody said not it.
Do you want to continue as president, or are you ready to?
I am.
That's for a year.
No, I mean like that. Maximum number of years you can serve as one, or is it just up to us?
It's up to us.
Okay.
There are some boards that, watch the TAM board and see how they did it earlier this week. Some boards just do rotation, so clerk moves into sometimes there's a vice president that moves into the president position. Sometimes the president sticks around for a while. Sometimes it's like a internal nomination thing.
Sometimes it's a coup.
Sometimes it's a not it situation. So it really depends on what you all want to do. I think one thing Rachel and I have talked a lot about is we've worked hard to make the position as streamlined as possible, so it's not like a monumental amount of work. But it is a lot. I mean, Rachel does an amazing job posting online. She meets with me every week. She's out at the sites a lot. She's hosting coffee chats. Like, it is a level up in terms of engagement. So,
Rachel, would you like to continue?
I am, if I need to continue, I will continue. I am very open to someone else if they're ready to step in. I'm more than happy to let someone else shine because I think everybody here could do a really great job and I don't need to feel like I'm not the center. Like I don't need to be the center.
Yeah, I don't think it's more of that. I think it's you have great capacity to really continue to be a strong board president. I had considered stepping up as the clerk because I filled in for you and I'm closest to that role. My problem is that my life in San Francisco has become a lot more burdened with not being able to be as present as I've been in the past until we can kind of work that out in my job. But if you were like, I can't do this anymore, I will volunteer to step up. But I would love for you to do it for one more year. That's as transparent as I can be.
No, I appreciate that.
And I will continue to be the clerk if that is something that someone else doesn't want to do.
We had talked at one point that it's nice for the clerk to be there and maybe potentially become the just from that learning stuff.
Sure.
And so that's why it's nice it's over there on that side of the table.
Why do I feel not it vibe from you, Daniel?
I would do that. I mean, I would do the clerk or the school board association. I mean, I don't have the organization to be a president. I mean, that would be horrible running these meetings. Everybody talk about whatever you want to talk about. Go.
I just want there to be a succession plan because I could do it for another year, but I would like to know that there are other people who have this experience and everybody brings something different here. Like Shelley is, I learned so much from having her there.
Yeah, Shelley.
It's like I feel like
president.
And I feel like there's so much that you guys I could learn from all of you if you were in this role, and I don't want to just be sitting here because it's convenient. So
one thought in that realm also to maybe give you, because I know as board president sometimes when somebody else was presiding it's kind of like, okay, I can participate or whatever it is. If you stay on to intentionally pick a few people to tag, you're going to be it in March.
That's
and even if
idea.
you're going to be here, I think it's totally okay to do.
To facilitate a meeting.
Facilitate a meeting, because one, it gives you a little bit of a break facilitating meetings. Two, it spreads around the experience
It's a great idea.
to a lot of different people, because Chris, if you're in the clerk role, but your life doesn't change, it would be good to have that experience maybe spread around and relieve you. So that's my friendly amendment to the voting process would be to maybe think about doing something like that.
All of us should lead at least one meeting a year.
Could be that, yeah. Something like that.
Sure.
So just a thought to help.
Does that help reduce anything off of your plate?
actually, honestly, this last year has been, dare I say it, pretty easy.
Oh, compared to what it was with the work we had the year before and the year
so
before
much more
that.
efficient now. And that's a lot to do with Tyler's leadership, but also just as a team, I feel like
Strong team.
yeah, it's a strong team, and I feel like it's very easy to figure out what we need to do as a group. Getting mascots, that was fairly easy.
But I do think that you are ubiquitously present at a lot of events during the day that I used to be personally. And I think the president having that capacity is key. Especially during this time when we're facing a parcel tax. And it's just something I've thought about. But like I said today I would have run the meeting today if you had to leave, and
I know that was so fantastic.
So I run the meetings, and we all would have your back. But if you want, you're
I
new.
do not.
This is what I'm concerned about as well. Is we're up for re-election. Anna.
Oh right. Oh right.
And so you know, I don't know who's going to run, but, you know, I plan to run again. I made the announcement. If I win or not, and that continuity is important as well, right? I don't know.
I've only been through it once, and I was board member or president when it happened, and then president right after.
That's right. You ran while you were president, right? Risking, yeah.
I mean, it switches over in December, so
Yeah,
it
true.
will be.
True. Anyway.
But even if you're new, it's still good to get experience.
As a clerk.
Either as a clerk or facilitating a meeting, just to kind of get the experience and understand whether that role works or doesn't, or whatever you learn from it is helpful.
How much work is the clerk?
Well, I am part of the agenda planning. Assign a lot of things, and I think I'm just kind of like back up if she isn't available, and kind of stay in the front with Tyler. We talk regularly, just kind of ears to the ground. Tyler will call either of us for bouncing ideas off of.
Yeah, so I might write something and ask for the two of them to give me feedback on it. Or if I've got a slide deck that we want to be, you know, really thoughtful around, get their feedback before. And mostly meeting for about an hour before every meeting, just to plan the agenda and talk through those logistics.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to continue with clerk?
I'm open. If you think you'd like to take it on for a year.
I mean, if you do not want to, I would. I'm not like needing to yet.
Yeah, you want to give us what a lubricant, what am I, percolate for a while? It's your call. I am not, I have no ego in the game.
I mean, you're next.
Yeah, I'll just do as I'm told. I mean, I could do clerk, or I could do MCSB.
Yeah.
Wait, was that? Do MCSBA?
Orange County School Board Association wrap up with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would do that one too.
MCSBA?
Yes.
I mean, I think continuity is helpful, and I could definitely see you moving into or either of you.
I love the idea of everybody filling in for you one time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that once you get a taste of it, you're like, oh, this isn't as intimidating as it seems.
That's true.
For 2 meetings a year, right? Like, why not? Like,
And you have to do a couple.
Well, when we come with the schedule, I think we should put the rotation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have to vote on anything?
So I'm kind of
Did
hearing
we decide
Shelley.
anything?
I'm kind of hearing Shelley advocate for
Well,
continuity.
she wants to be president again.
Do you see how far back it's really not just
surprised you haven't turned
trying to
around.
keep you from getting my cold.
I haven't heard anybody step up to want to be president.
I think we want Rachel to continue.
I'm hearing Shelley advocate for continuity with the clerk and the president, and maybe having MCSBA be one of the two of you. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
And I also think that I think you should share and plan the agenda. We had talked about that before.
Yeah, we could always do that where we
Yeah.
rotate one of you on for agenda planning.
Because it says
That's a
here,
great idea.
there's an alternate clerk, trustee. Is that a? What is that?
A clerk
Board
and an
clerk,
alternate?
one trustee and an alternate clerk.
Yeah, we have not done that in the past.
Interesting.
Not that I remember.
So
What if we did that?
why don't we have an alternate clerk?
A clerk and alternate clerk? And
Yeah,
rotating.
seniority, which would you rather do? Alternate clerk or MCSB? No, I'm asking you, give me an answer.
I'll do the clerk.
Okay.
The alternate clerk one or
Alternate
clerk?
clerk.
And I will do it.
Thing one or thing two,
Thing
right?
2.
That's behind door number one?
Great.
Thing
Shelley,
2.
is there anything you are interested in? Are you pretty good?
I'm interested in a lot of stuff, and I wasn't
I think too, with all of us sharing in board preparation or meeting preparation throughout the year,
sure.
right? Just, one, again, not violating Brown Act, but right, that, and then we should all lead 1 to 2 meetings a year as well.
I do think, in conversation with Rachel, and I'll let Rachel speak for herself, she's done it. It is a lot of work. Doing it again is a lot of work again. And having people rotate in and out of the president's seat is important. So, I'd love to have you as president again. I think it would be amazing. And I think someone should be prepared to step into that position, if Rachel doesn't want it again next year.
I think you two have built a really good rapport, especially some of the things that's coming down the pike. And I just think it's just another year would be more in our favor to have that same dynamic.
Do I hear a motion?
I'm gonna have a motion.
Do motions on this?
We do have to vote.
Okay.
Yes.
We do have to vote, and we can either vote slate or sequentially, but I think voting sequentially is probably just as easy, maybe.
Well, I appreciate the confidence and the honor you guys are conveying. And I definitely am not doing this next year, so y'all had better prepare. I'm warning you now. I'm not gonna be talked into it another year.
No.
That's good.
I'm
We can make a
hopeful my
plan and do an
work from home
apprenticeship,
situation
we'll make a.
Yeah, so plan.
So
Got one more year.
for board
Pick your
president,
success.
Yes.
I move that we, by a show of hands, support yay or nay for Rachel to.
I need a first and a second.
You need a first and a second for that? Really?
This is a regular nomination.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was different for voting. Okay, thank you, Teresa, for keeping us honest. I make a motion for Rachel to continue as board president of the Ross Valley School Board.
Do I have a
Second.
Okay, Chris.
Aye.
Shelley.
Aye.
Daniel.
Bye.
And Anna.
Aye.
And Rachel. Aye.
President.
You're not
President.
Congrats.
Thank you, Rachel.
Congratulations, Madam President.
We are lucky to
Thank you.
have you.
All right. We have a board clerk position to fill. So
I will make a motion for Chris to remain as clerk for the through December 2026.
do I have a second?
I'll make a friendly amendment.
Oh.
That Daniel will be the alternate clerk
Can we do that soon?
in the same
Great.
Sure.
motion.
Perfect. I second that.
You can't second.
No, I can't.
Well, I suppose he
I suppose
could.
I could.
We're voting.
I will second it though. All right. So Shelley.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. Anna.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
And Daniel.
Aye.
All right. And then for
Congrats.
yes, thank you. And then for Marin County School Boards Association.
I will nominate, I move, I make a motion to nominate Anna Marsh as the Marin County School Board Association representative for the 2026 year.
Do I have a second?
She nominated
Not feeling the
your second,
confidence,
so now call for the vote. You seconded?
No, I said do I have a second?
Oh, I thought you seconded. Oh, then I'll second it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought she said she seconded.
Sorry, Anna.
Okay, let's vote.
Sorry.
All right, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
All right,
All right.
awkward. Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Shelley.
Aye.
Anna.
Aye.
And Rachel. Aye. Thank you for sitting. It's good.
Okay.
And then non-elected officers, board secretary. Oh, is that just Tyler?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna keep Tyler
Thanks.
there.
Well, here we are.
All right, next item is superintendent and cabinet report, and we've got updates.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. CSBA was fantastic. It was great to have 3 of you there. I went to a lot of budget and finance related sessions when I was down there, and a lot of good information. I've also been on paternity leave, so I've been spending the last few weeks reconnecting with principals and cabinet members and getting out to school sites, which has been really nice. And spending a lot of time talking about the budget and the presentations tonight. A lot of work went into kind of getting the right data and all that, so spent a lot of time on that in the last few weeks.
Ed Services has been prepping for our January 5th PD day. So the first day back for teachers, they'll be in full day professional development. Our K-5 teachers have a training with EL education coaches. They'll be kind of unpacking the next big unit that they're doing, and then also digging into what's called the Read, Think, Talk, Write cycle, which is kind of the framework for all of the lessons. So we're excited about that. I'm also super excited, and Lori's probably going to talk about it, but that Lori's going to be running a behavior and safety training for the rest of our elementary certificated folks. That I think will be really, really great to help our kiddos who need a little more support. And Whitehill will be continuing their focus on increasing student depth of knowledge within all of their lessons at school. And then just some good news, the California dashboard, there's some new things on the dashboard this year, and one of them are these growth reports, and they just came out today. So first time we've seen these, and in both math and ELA, we were designated as accelerated growth, which means that more than 70% of our students showed growth over the previous year in terms of their scores last year and their scores this year, which is amazing.
That's amazing. Great.
Yeah, the highest level is exceptional, and manner was exceptional in both. I haven't actually checked all the sites to go to the others, but I was super proud to see that for manner. Amazing.
Sleeping giants.
Super cool news.
Awesome. And then just to piggyback on the January 5th PD day, yeah, we're excited about that. And we do have some classified staff that will be attending. We do have some funding that we can provide them a full day of training at MCOE around de-escalation of behaviors and that kind of thing. And so they're very excited to be involved and get the opportunity to participate in some PD. I actually attended an inclusion training at Marin County Office of Education with 6 of our teachers recently. We just had a great time just talking about our best practices, as well as really looking at just this notion of like some supports are necessary for certain students but beneficial to all. Just that whole idea of making things accessible. Julia and I participated in TK walkthroughs with representatives from Marin County Office of Education, our SELPA, and the El Dorado Office of Education. And they were looking at the best practices that were happening. We're going to do a debrief probably right after the winter break on that. So that was really great. And then I had mentioned at another meeting that we received 10 different grants from the Dedication to Special Education grant funding. So 10 teachers applied for grants. They received funding for different inclusive items in their class, such as timers and different types of seating and things like that. And I actually went to Jamie Evans' class, Stacey Walden's class, and Rebecca Hayhurst's class and saw these things in action the other day. And it's super exciting to see the kiddos using these things and really thriving. So.
That's great.
The weather that's coming in earnest on Friday, our maintenance staff is out there preparing our sites. It is going to be a little difficult with the holiday shutdown, but we will be keeping an eye on our sites to ensure that we don't have any issues, and we'll address them if they do come up. And then our staff has been working really hard in the business and HR realm with the installation of our new financial system at the County Office of Education. We had a day of training last week. We've had 2 days of training this week, and that's just in the last 2 weeks, and it's constant and lots of dual entry, and it's just a process to put in a new system that we're working our way through, and we're excited to get the new system next fiscal year.
So until you switch over, you're doing double entry and everything?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. All right, with that, we do not need to continue to close session. I've got meeting review here. Aside from it being late, sorry about that.
It's a good meeting.
Do we have any future board topics and direction? I believe I heard something about mascots.
They're a little tired, little you know, the White Hill guy's a little scary to real little kids. Teddy bear, everybody loves the bear from Brookside. I don't know.
I know there's a toddler who's super happy with the hawk.
Yeah.
Very cute.
But Whitehill's
They're all gross. I mean, let's.
If we needed to prioritize.
No, they're matted.
Anyway, something around mascot. That would be a good
Okay. Right. Whether we ask.
Yeah, parent clubs or.
Right.
I think the parent club should.
Yeah, agreed.
And also some type of branding, like a board or like a pictures or a photo booth, but also White Hill Band is here. Just something where it's like, oh, Ross Valley Schools, Manor, right? That should have been, hey, sing along with Manor School, Ross Valley Schools. You know, arrows. We don't. You know, we need to promote ourselves. There's competition in our neighborhood.
Yeah. At the Winter Market, there were other schools there.
And so, how do we say these are the great things we're doing? Look at us.
And there were it was they mostly the kids just wanted to hang out. So if we would have had a sign, they could have hung out with the sign, and then it would look kind of more inviting for then families to come over and take
And
pictures.
just random animals wandering around.
Right.
I think my third grader was most happy that sixth grade boys were asking who she was. I was like, oh.
They're ready.
Can't help with that future board.
It's gonna get easier. It's only gonna get easier.
Alright.
Future topics, I think we did have conversations around continued decision making around the budget stuff that we talked about, and I would be more than happy to have some conversations around how we might structure meetings that might involve a lot of people attending them and how to maybe structure, you know, I don't know, whether it's a workshop, knowing that there's a decision at the end or how can we
increase attendance?
Yeah, how can we, if we are gonna have a lot of people at a difficult decision-making meeting, how can we structure it in a way that is productive and helpful? Now that we have your attention, let's make it productive and helpful as best we can. So I'm happy to help.
Can we get maybe some color around what's happening with the bridge at Brookside and what the plans are around the facilities updates? Not right now, but a future board topic.
We'll do that.
Any debrief items?
Can I just ask a question? When is the district office closed for the holidays? Starting.
We're not really.
No, okay.
We have staff that are here during the break.
Most of us will be closed down for the next 2 weeks.
We do lock the door, but we have staff here that are working.
Yes.
No, I want to make sure you guys are getting breaks. Like,
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say about the meeting is I appreciate the engagement. Those were 4 really, really difficult topics. The 0% raise, budget cuts, first interim, and the parcel tax. Like, that's a huge, huge meeting. They all interconnect. And I thought we all did a pretty darn good job at the questions, public comment, discussion.
We're getting better.
Yeah, we're getting better with that. And I just feel like even with a hot topic, 4 hot topics, that we did a really good job. And I hope to see more community members at the January 27th special meeting and the February 11th meeting, where you all will make a decision on the timing and structure of the parcel tax. So folks listening in, please come to those meetings, text a few friends, bring them here. We want to hear your voice, and if you have input, send us an email.
With that, let's see, what time is it? With that,
Sorry, can we also get, never mind, it's good. I'll do the math in my head. I want on a calculator actually, so don't worry about it. Okay, go ahead.
alright, with that, I will adjourn our meeting at 9:59.